Forget central heating. Forget electric blankets. This is the 19th century. Your room is bone-chillingly cold, and going to sleep isn't about relaxation, it's a battle for survival. So how did Victorians avoid freezing to death every single night? The answer wasn't willpower. It was an entire arsenal of gadgets unbelievably strange and surprisingly cozy. From fortress-like beds that created their own microclimate, to pans of red-hot coals slid between the sheets. Tonight, we pull back the curtain and uncover their forgotten world of engineered comfort. Hey guys, tonight we are going to travel back to a time before central heating, before electric blankets, before the very concept of a soft, quiet, and consistently warm place to sleep even existed. Imagine you are standing in your very own bedroom sometime around the 1880s. A sliver of moonlight cuts through a gap in the heavy window drapes, illuminating a fine mist that escapes your lips with every breath. The air is so cold, so profoundly still and sharp that it feels like a physical presence in the room. You've just made your way up from the drawing room fire, and that lingering warmth is already a distant memory. The floorboards beneath your thinly soled slippers are like slabs of ice. Honestly, with no thermostat to crank up, you probably wouldn't last the night without a bit of 19th century ingenuity. Your survival hinges on a series of strange and surprisingly cozy gadgets and rituals. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I always find it fascinating to see where everyone is drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your eyes adjust to the gloom and you look toward the centerpiece of the room. It's not just a bed, it's a monument. A vast four-poster bed made of dark carved mahogany standing tall and imposing in the middle of the space. To our modern eyes, it screams opulence, a statement of wealth. But as you stand there shivering, you understand its true purpose. This isn't about showing off. This is a fortress against the cold. You walk towards it, your footsteps echoing softly in the cavernous room. The sheer scale of it is something to behold. The mattress sits high off the floor, supported by a sturdy frame, and from the four corners, thick posts rise up to support a solid wooden canopy called a tester. This entire structure is designed for one thing to be enclosed. Hanging from rails that run between the posts are the most important part of this entire sleep system, the curtains. These are not the light, airy drapes of a modern bedroom. You reach out and your fingers touch the fabric. It's a heavy, deep crimson wool, thick and substantial, lined with a softer material on the inside. It feels less like a curtain and more like a wall hanging or a heavy winter coat. This is your primary defense. You find the gap in the curtains and pull one side, then the other. The brass rings scrape softly along the wooden rail, a gentle metallic whisper in the profound silence. As you draw the final curtain closed, you are plunged into near-total darkness, sealed off from the rest of the room, and instantly you feel the change. The oppressive, biting cold of the room is immediately lessened. The air inside your fabric cocoon is still, and within minutes the faint heat radiating from your own body begins to create a small, precious pocket of relative warmth. This is the mainstream, well-understood function of the four-poster bed that persisted for centuries. In an era without central heating, when drafts were a constant enemy seeping in through ill-fitting windows and door frames, the bed curtains created a micro-environment. It was your own personal, portable, fabric-walled room where you could trap your body heat and survive the night. But there's more to it. Historians still argue whether the primary driver for the four-poster's enduring popularity in the Victorian era was for warmth or for privacy. While grand houses were developing more private layouts, the idea of a bedroom as a completely personal sanctuary was still evolving. Servants might still need to enter the room to tend to a fire or bring water in the morning. In less affluent homes, family members or even lodgers might share a room. The bed curtains provided a crucial layer of privacy, a personal space within a communal one. They were a visual and physical barrier, ensuring that the act of sleeping was a private affair. And here's a quirky little tidbit that's a holdover from much earlier times: that solid canopy above your head, the tester. Its original medieval function was quite practical. It was there to stop things from falling on you while you slept. In a house with a thatched roof or rudimentary ceiling, this could mean anything from dust and dirt to insects or even the occasional small rodent. By the 19th century, with plaster ceilings, the risk of a rat dropping in for a midnight cuddle was significantly lower, thank goodness. Yet the tester remained partly out of tradition, but also as a final seal for your cozy fortress, preventing dust and fine soot from the coal fires from settling on your face as you slept. It completed the sense of being in a safe, enclosed, and self-contained world. You settle back against the pillows, the heavy wool curtains hanging silently around you. The sounds of the house, the creaks and groans of the timber are muffled. The chilling draft from the window can no longer reach you. Here in your bed fortress, you are insulated, hidden, and for the first time since coming upstairs, genuinely beginning to feel comfortable. It's a strange kind of cozy born, not of luxury, but of necessity. You are safe inside the first and most important gadget of the Victorian night. Lying here cocooned in your dark fabric-walled world, you feel a deep sense of security. It's a feeling that resonates with the rituals you performed just before coming upstairs. The safety you feel now is not just from the bed curtains, but from the careful, methodical process of sealing your entire home against the night. Your mind drifts back just a few minutes to the final moments before you ascended the staircase. The house was settling around you, the last embers in the drawing room grate collapsing into a soft orange powder. Your final task of the day was to secure the perimeter. You start as always with the back door, the one leading out into the small cobbled yard. It's a heavy solid oak door and you pull it shut with a satisfying thump. The air immediately feels a bit warmer, the draft's cut off. Your first action is to slide the bolt at the top of the door. It's not a small, tidy brass nub. It's a thick black iron bar at least a foot long that you have to lift and guide into a heavy iron bracket screwed deep into the doorframe. It slides home with a deep sonorous thud that seems to echo through the kitchen. Then you crouch down to the bottom bolt, a mirror image of the one above, and slide it across. The house feels a little more like a vault now. Next comes the main lock. You retrieve the key, not from your pocket, but from a hook on the wall. This is no flimsy piece of metal. It's a hefty, almost comically large iron key, nearly the length of your hand, with an ornate looped handle and a complex toothed bit. It feels heavy and cool in your palm, a symbol of the security it provides. You insert it into the large iron-plated keyhole. Turning it requires a bit of wrist strength, and the mechanism inside the lock engages with a series of satisfyingly loud clunks. This is a point of quiet pride. For the household, it's a Chubb detector lock, one of the marvels of the age. Invented a few decades earlier, its genius lies in its anti-tampering mechanism. If a would-be burglar were to try and pick the lock with a tool, a special internal lever would be tripped and jam the bolt. The next time you, the rightful key holder, tried to open it, your key wouldn't turn. It was an instant silent signal that someone had tried to gain entry. A beautifully simple and effective piece of mechanical engineering that gave homeowners across Britain a new sense of peace. You give the doorknob a final reassuring rattle. It's solid as a rock. From the back door you move through the ground floor, your single candle casting long, dancing shadows that make the familiar furniture seem strange and alien. You check the windows in the drawing room. These are large sash windows, and you ensure each one is not only closed, but that the brass crescent-shaped latch at the center is firmly turned, locking the two frames together. One of the latches is a bit loose, so you employ a time-honored piece of secondary security, a small wedge of wood you jam tightly into the side of the sash. High-tech it is not, but it gets the job done. Here's a quirky little gadget you're particularly fond of. On the inside of the front door, you have a small brass contraption called a burglar alarm. It's a simple spring-loaded device. Before you go up to bed, you position a small metal arm so that it rests against the closed door. If the door were to be pushed open even slightly, this arm would be displaced, releasing a powerful spring that brings a small hammer down onto a large polished brass bell. The resulting clang would be loud enough to wake not only you, but probably the neighbors as well. It's the 19th century equivalent of a motion sensor light, powered by pure mechanical anxiety. And that anxiety was a very real part of Victorian life. Social historians still argue whether the elaborate locking rituals and the proliferation of these security gadgets were driven more by a genuine statistical rise in urban crime, or by the media of the day. The newly popular and sensationalist newspapers, along with the cheap, thrilling, penny dreadful novels, were filled with lurid tales of cat burglars, shadowy intruders, and home invasions. This constant stream of thrilling, terrifying stories may have created a perception of danger that was far greater than the actual risk, fueling a desire for a perfectly sealed, impenetrable domestic sanctuary. Now, with the house locked, bolted, and even booby-trapped with your little bell device, you've made your way upstairs. The memory of the clanking bolts and the heavy key fades, replaced by the profound quiet of your bedchamber. The security you feel is layered. It's the fortress of the house, and within it, the fortress of your bed. You have performed the nightly duty. You have separated the safe domestic interior from the unpredictable, potentially dangerous world outside. You pull the thick blankets up a little higher, settling deeper into the mattress. The world is shut out. You're safe. The only thing left to contend with is the profound darkness that now envelops you. Now, you are properly settled, sealed away in your four-poster fortress, encased in the larger fortress of your locked and bolted home. The darkness inside your bed curtains is absolute. It's a thick, velvety black that seems to press in on you, a stark contrast to the light-polluted nights of the modern world. Your ears strain against the silence, trying to catch any sound from the house, but there is only the faint rhythmic beat of your own heart. For a moment you consider simply giving in to the darkness, letting sleep take you. But a small, nagging task remains. You want to read for a few minutes, a calming ritual to ease your mind. For that, you need light. You reach out a hand, fumbling on the small three-legged bedside table that stands just outside your curtained domain. Your fingers brush against a cool, smooth ceramic object, a match striker. It's a small pot with a ribbed, unglazed surface running around its middle. Next to it you find the box of matches. These are not the safety matches we know today. These are Lucifer matches, a brilliant invention that could be struck on any rough surface. But their convenience came with a serious, well-known downside. They were made with white phosphorus, a notoriously toxic and volatile substance. You handle them with the respect they deserve. You carefully extract one match. With a practiced motion, you zip it against the rough side of the striker. It erupts into life with a startling fizz and a small puff of acrid, sulfurous smoke that stings your nostrils. For a brief, dazzling moment, the flame burns a brilliant blue-green, a chemical signature of the phosphorus, before settling into a familiar warm yellow. The sunlight is almost painful, making you squint as your pupils contract. The shadows in the room leap and dance, and the familiar shape of your wardrobe looks for a moment like a looming figure. Your target is the candle. It sits in a holder on your bedside table, a simple, elegant thing of polished brass with a wide, saucer-like base to catch any drips of wax and a small looped handle for carrying. This is your personal light source. You bring the sputtering match to the wick, and it catches the flame growing steadily. You quickly blow out the match, the lingering smell of sulfur hanging in the air. The candlelight is soft, gentle, and alive. It flickers with every imperceptible draft, casting a warm golden glow on the mahogany bedpost and the crimson curtain. This nightly ritual, repeated in millions of homes, was a constant dance with danger. The mainstream historical fact is that fire was an ever-present threat in the Victorian home. Houses were filled with flammable materials, wooden furniture, textiles, books, and the coal dust that settled everywhere. A single knocked-over candle could be catastrophic. People were deeply aware of the risk. Newspaper articles frequently reported on house fires started by a candle left burning or an ember escaping a fireplace. This low-level anxiety was part of the texture of life. Yet alongside the candle, you also have another option, one that feels much more modern and sophisticated: gaslight. A polished brass fixture protrudes from the wall near your bed with a delicate flower-shaped glass shade pointing downwards. A small key or gas cock controls the flow. A gentle turn, a quick touch of the match to the nozzle, and with a soft whoomp, a bright, steady, and far more powerful light fills the room. It's a marvel of modern engineering, piping flammable gas directly into your home, offering brilliant illumination at the turn of a handle. It makes your candle seem primitive, almost pathetic. But you, like many Victorians, are suspicious of it, especially at night. And here we get into the quirky fringe beliefs surrounding this new technology. There was a widespread fear of gaslight, and not just because of the obvious risk of explosions or leaks. People complained that the light it produced was harsh and unnatural, that it hurt the eyes and gave people headaches. More than that, there was a genuine belief that the fumes from the burning gas, even when burning correctly, were unhealthy. People worried that sleeping in a room where gas had been burning would lead to a host of mysterious ailments. They believed it consumed the good air and replaced it with something noxious. While we now know the dangers of carbon monoxide from incomplete combustion, their fears were broader and less scientific, a general mistrust of this chemical miracle being piped into their private chambers. Historians still argue whether the slow adoption of gaslighting in private spaces like bedrooms was due to the real and perceived health risks or simple aesthetic preference. Many people just preferred the soft, gentle, and familiar flicker of a candle. It was seen as more restful, more natural, more conducive to a peaceful state of mind before sleep. The gaslight was for the public spaces of the house, the hallways, the drawing room where you wanted to impress guests with your modern conveniences. The bedroom was a sanctuary, and it demanded a softer, more traditional touch. So you stick with your candle. You carefully place the brass holder on your bedside table, positioning it so the flame is a safe distance from your heavy wool curtains. The warm, gentle light feels like a friendly companion in the dark. It's just enough to read by, but not so bright as to feel jarring. It's a small, manageable flame, a tiny piece of the sun that you've tamed and brought into your fortress of solitude. It holds the vast, pressing darkness at bay, creating a small, safe golden bubble of light. Now and only now are you ready to finally relax. The candle flame sways gently, a tiny hypnotic dancer in the stillness of your curtained enclosure. Its warm glow is a comfort, but the air inside your bed fortress, while warmer than the room beyond, still carries a distinct chill. The sheets, when you shift your legs, feel cold and uninviting, almost damp to the touch. You know from experience that it will take a good 20 minutes of lying perfectly still, letting your own body heat do the work, before the bed feels truly comfortable. But you, as a well-equipped Victorian, have a gadget for that, a shortcut to coziness. You reach down beside the bed and your hand closes around a long wooden handle. You lift and a rather strange object emerges into the candlelight. It's a warming pan, a beautiful yet entirely practical piece of domestic technology. It consists of a large circular pan made of gleaming polished brass, or copper about the size of a dinner plate but much deeper. It has a hinged lid, often ornately perforated with patterns of stars and swirls. This pan is attached to a long handle, usually made of turned wood like oak or ash, making the whole thing look like a sort of flattened, oversized ladle. This is not a hot water bottle. The concept of a vulcanized rubber bottle that could safely hold hot water is still a few decades away. Your method is much more direct and, frankly, much more dangerous. The warming pan is designed to hold hot coals. The preparation for this moment happened downstairs as the last part of your nightly routine. You would have taken this very pan to the fireplace in the kitchen or drawing room. Using a small shovel, you would have carefully scooped up a small number of glowing embers from the dying fire. Not flaming logs, but the long-lasting, intensely hot coals. You would place them inside the brass pan, add a sprinkle of fragrant spices or dried lavender if you were feeling fancy, and then securely close the perforated lid. The holes in the lid were crucial. They allowed the heat to escape, but prevented any stray sparks or embers from falling out and setting your entire world on fire. Now, with the pan prepped and radiating a gentle dry heat, the ritual begins. You pull back the heavy blankets and top sheet of your bed, exposing the cold linen sheet beneath. Holding the pan by its long wooden handle, you carefully slip it between the sheets. Then you begin to move it. You don't just leave it in one spot, that's how you get scorch marks or worse. You have to keep it in constant, gentle motion. You slide it slowly up the bed, then down like you're ironing the sheets from the inside. The brass pan glides over the linen, and as it passes you can see the faint warmth it leaves behind. A soft, almost invisible cloud of steam might rise from the fabric as the cold, slightly damp linen meets the intense heat. The air fills with the faint metallic scent of hot brass, mingled with the even fainter, cleaner smell of warming linen. If you added those spices earlier, a subtle aroma of lavender or cinnamon now infuses your bed a touch of aromatherapy, mixed with your nightly fire hazard dance. This is a mainstream universal practice in any 19th century home with a fireplace. From the grandest manor house to the humblest cottage, the warming pan was an essential winter tool. It was the only way to take the icy shock out of getting into bed. The feeling of slipping into a pre-warmed bed was a luxury that everyone could aspire to, a small but profound comfort in a world of drafts and chills. But there's a quirky aspect to this ritual. The design of the perforations on the lid wasn't just functional. It became a form of folk art. People took pride in their warming pans. You might find them punched with Hart's family initials or elaborate geometric patterns. It was a way of personalizing a deeply mundane object. Furthermore, there was a whole etiquette to the type of wood used for the handle. A simple rough-hewn handle might signify a more rustic rural home, while a finely turned and polished mahogany handle was a subtle signal of middle-class respectability. It's a small detail, but one that speaks volumes about the Victorian love of status and detail in every object. Historians still argue about the true level of danger involved. Was the nightly use of a pan full of hot coals in a bed made of linen, straw, and horsehair as terrifyingly risky as it sounds to us? Or were people so practiced, so methodical in its use that accidents were genuinely rare? Surviving diaries and household manuals certainly treat it as a perfectly normal everyday task with simple instructions to keep the pan moving and be sure the lid is secure. It suggests a level of casual familiarity with open flames and intense heat that is almost impossible for us to comprehend. They lived with fire in a way we simply don't. It was their servant and their enemy often at the same time. After a few minutes of sweeping the warming pan back and forth, the job is done. You carefully slide it out from under the covers and place it on the stone hearth by the empty fireplace in your room where it can cool down safely. Now you swing your legs under the covers. The difference is astonishing. The sheets are no longer cold and hostile. They are welcoming, infused with a dry, pleasant warmth that seems to sink right into your bones. It's a deep, penetrating heat, far more satisfying than the damp heat of a modern hot water bottle. You sigh with contentment, the simple, profound pleasure of a warm bed on a cold night. The little dance with danger was, you decide, entirely worth it. Safely nestled in your pre-warmed bed, the cozy heat a welcome cocoon against the evening's chill, you finally feel the day begin to recede. The candle flickers, your book lies waiting, but there is one final ritual of the body to perform before you can truly settle. It's the nightly process of ablutions, the 19th century version of brushing your teeth and washing your face. And it is an experience embracing shocking cold. You glance towards the corner of the room where a dedicated piece of furniture stands ready. It's your washstand, a handsome piece, probably made of mahogany or marble-topped pine. It is the Victorian equivalent of a bathroom sink, but with zero plumbing. On its surface rests a large ceramic pitcher filled with water and nestled inside a matching wide-mouthed ceramic basin. This set the ewer and basin is the heart of your personal hygiene routine. The water in that pitcher was brought up hours ago by a servant, or perhaps you hauled it up yourself from the kitchen pump earlier in the day. It is now the exact same temperature as the air in this frigid room. There is no hot tap to turn, no geyser to ignite. The very idea of readily available hot water in a bedroom is a distant dream of futuristic luxury. Steeling yourself, you swing your legs out of the warm bed, the shock of the cold floorboards even more pronounced now that you've been cozy. You pad over to the washstand. You lift the heavy ceramic pitcher, it's probably decorated with a delicate floral pattern, a small attempt to bring beauty to a purely functional object, and pour a small amount of water into the basin. The sound of the clear cold water splashing into the bowl seems unnaturally loud in the quiet room. You dip your hands in. The cold is sharp, immediate, and breathtaking. It makes your fingers ache. You cup your hands, bring the water to your face, and splash. It's a shock to the system that makes you gasp, your skin tightening instantly. It's invigorating to say the least. This is your nightly facial. There's no fancy cleanser, no multi-step routine. There is only cold water, and if you're feeling particularly grimy, a bar of simple harsh soap made from lye and tallow, which would leave your skin feeling tight and stripped of all moisture. Next, dental hygiene. Beside the basin sits a small ceramic cup holding your toothbrush. The handle might be made of bone or ivory, and the bristles are made of coarse badger or boar hair firmly set into the handle. It's a far cry from the soft nylon bristles of today. You dip the brush into the cold water and then into a small tin of tooth powder. This powder is the Victorian toothpaste, a mildly abrasive mixture of chalk salt and perhaps some powdered charcoal for its supposed whitening properties. Some fancier versions might be flavored with camphor or mint, a weak attempt to mask the chalky taste. You scrub your teeth with the stiff, wet bristles. It's a functional, if not entirely, pleasant experience. This whole setup is a mainstream historical reality for virtually everyone in the 19th century from the Queen downwards. The portable ewer and basin were the universal standard for personal washing outside of the occasional full bath. This is what washing up meant for generations. It was a brief, functional, and intensely cold affair. But here's where we find a quirky and slightly grim tidbit about Victorian hygiene. After you've finished, you are left with a basin full of used dirty water. And it stays there, all night, right there in your bedroom. The logistics of carrying a heavy sloshing basin of dirty water down a dark staircase to be emptied was not something one undertook lightly. So the common practice was simply to leave it. It would be one of the first tasks of the morning for a servant or yourself to empty the slops. This means that every night you would go to sleep with a small open basin of stagnant gray water sitting in the corner of your room, slowly releasing whatever faint, unpleasant odors it contained into the cold air. Historians still debate the true Victorian understanding of germ theory. While the work of Lister and Pasteur was happening in the latter half of the century, its practical application in the home was incredibly slow to catch on. Did people leave the dirty water sitting there out of pure convenience or because they genuinely saw no harm in it? The prevailing miasma theory, which we'll get to, suggested that disease came from bad smells and noxious vapors, not from microscopic organisms in water. As long as the water didn't smell too foul, it was probably considered harmless. It's a fascinating insight into their perception of cleanliness, where visible dirt was the enemy, but invisible germs were not yet a concern. Your ablutions complete, you make one last trip across the freezing floor and dive back into the sanctuary of your pre-warmed bed. The lingering, tingling cold on your face and hands is a stark reminder of the world outside your blankets. You pull the covers up to your chin, the contrast between the chill on your skin and the warmth of the bed creating a strange but pleasant sensation. The final task is done. The day is officially over. You can now finally turn to the last remaining comfort before sleep, your book illuminated by the single steady flame of your candle. Having braved the chilling ritual of your nightly wash-up, You are now firmly ensconced back in your warm bed. The cold floor is a forgotten memory. The basin of gray water is out of sight and out of mind, and the soft warm sheets are a profound comfort. Now you must dress for the long, cold night ahead. You can't possibly sleep in the clothes you wore during the day, nor can you sleep in nothing at all. That would be a surefire way to catch a fatal chill. You need a specific ensemble for sleeping, an outfit designed not for comfort as we know it, but for pure, unadulterated insulation. You reach for your night clothes, which have been laid out neatly on a nearby chair, perhaps warming alongside your bed. The primary garment is the nightshirt for a man or a nightgown for a woman. Forget the light silky or cotton pajamas of the modern era. This is a serious piece of clothing. You pick it up. The fabric is a thick, heavy-grade flannel, or wool soft from many washings but substantial in your hands. It's a vast tent-like garment reaching all the way from your neck down to your ankles. It has long sleeves that you can pull down over your hands and a high collar that you can button right up to your chin. There are no whimsical patterns, just a plain, sensible off-white or perhaps a muted stripe. Its sole purpose is to trap a layer of air around your body and prevent your precious body heat from escaping into the cold night. You pull the heavy garment on over your head. It's voluminous, and for a moment you're lost in a sea of flannel. Once it's on, you feel its weight, a comforting pressure on your shoulders. It's not restrictive, but it is undeniably present. This is the mainstream standard issue sleeping attire of the era. For centuries, this basic design, a long, heavy gown, was the default for sleeping, a tradition born from sheer necessity in unheated homes. But the nightgown is just the beginning. For a truly cold night, you need accessories. First and most importantly is the nightcap. You pick it up. It's a simple conical cap usually made of wool or cotton with a tassel or a pom-pom on the end. To modern eyes, it's the stuff of caricature, something Ebenezer Scrooge would wear, but as you pull it onto your head, you understand its genius. A huge amount of body heat is lost through the head. The nightcap immediately puts a stop to that. Your ears, which were beginning to feel the bite of the cold air, are now covered and warm. The cap feels snug and secure, a little woolen helmet against the cold. And here's a quirky little addition to your nightly wardrobe that many people swore by: bed socks. These are not your average socks. They are thick, hand-knitted woolen things, often reaching up to your knees. Slipping them on feels like putting your feet into two small personal blankets. While some health advisors of the day warned that wearing socks to bed was unhealthy and could inhibit the proper ventilation of the feet, for most people, the immediate practical comfort of warm feet in a cold bed far outweighed any vague theoretical health concerns. It was a simple, effective solution to a universal problem. Finally, for the truly dedicated comfort seeker, or for someone feeling particularly unwell, there was the dressing gown. You have one ready, a heavy quilted wool garment that you can wrap around yourself over your nightgown. While you might not sleep in it all night, it's perfect for the moments just before getting into bed or for those unfortunate middle-of-the-night trips to the chamber pot. It acts as a portable blanket, an extra layer of defense for any time you have to leave the sanctuary of the bed. Historians still argue about the subtle class distinctions in Victorian nightwear. While the basic form of the nightgown and cap was nearly universal, the quality of the material was a clear indicator of social standing. A wealthy individual might have a nightgown of fine, soft cambric, or even silk trimmed with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. A working-class person's nightgown would be made of rough, durable, unbleached wool, or a coarse linen wool blend called linsey-woolsey. The number of nightgowns a person owned was also a tell. The wealthy might have a dozen, allowing for frequent laundering, while the poor might only own one or two. Your soft, thick flannel places you comfortably in the middle class, sensible, practical, and concerned with warmth above all else. Fully kitted out in your nightgown, nightcap, and bed socks, you look and feel less like someone ready for a restful slumber, and more like someone preparing for an Arctic expedition. But as you slide back under the heavy blankets, you appreciate every single layer. The flannel of your nightgown against your skin, the wool of the cap on your head, the socks on your feet. They all work in concert, with the bed curtains and the warming pan. They are all part of a single integrated system of personal climate control. You are now a self-contained unit of warmth, a human thermal battery. The cold of the room is no longer a threat. It is a distant, abstract concept existing somewhere beyond your layers of wool flannel and linen. You are a masterpiece of low-tech, high-insulation engineering. The strange, bulky outfit feels less like clothing and more like a soft, wearable version of your own home. You are a perfect specimen of Victorian nighttime preparedness. Dressed in your thermal armor of flannel and wool nestled within your pre-warmed bed, you are a bastion of coziness against the cold. The candle casts its gentle dancing light and your book rests on your lap. But as you lie there, a new sensation begins to make itself known. The air within your curtained-off world is becoming close, stuffy, a little stale. Every breath you exhale adds to the humidity and warmth, and the heavy wool curtains do an excellent job of keeping it all trapped in with you. Your modern instincts scream at you to do the obvious reach out, pull back a curtain, and crack open the window just a sliver. Let in a breath of that crisp, clean, cold night air. It seems like the most natural, healthy thing in the world. But as that thought crosses your mind, a genuine, deep-seated fear grips you. It's a fear so profound, so ingrained by doctors' parents and popular wisdom, that the very idea of opening the window feels like inviting disaster into your home. You look towards the window. It's a tall sash-style window, and you made sure earlier that it was shut tight. Not just shut, but locked. And along the bottom where the frame meets the sill, you've placed a draft excluder, a long, sausage-shaped tube of fabric, filled with sand or sawdust, lovingly embroidered with a floral pattern. It lies there like a faithful guard dog, blocking the tiniest, most insidious crack. That window is not a portal to refreshment. It is a barrier against poison. This is because you, like almost everyone in the 19th century, are a firm believer in the miasma theory. This is the mainstream medical understanding of your day. The theory holds that diseases, the big terrifying ones like cholera, typhus, and influenza, are not spread by tiny invisible organisms. They are spread by miasma, a noxious vapor, a form of bad air that rises from decaying organic matter. It's the smell of swamps, of sewage, of refuse, heaps of graveyards. This bad air, this pestilential fog, is believed to be at its most potent and dangerous during the night. The night air is not just cold, it's corrupt. So as you lie in your stuffy bed, you imagine what's lurking just outside that glass. You picture the miasma creeping up from the damp earth in the garden, rising from the horse manure on the street below, wafting from the nearby river. It's an invisible, malevolent cloud that, if it were to seep into your room, could settle in your lungs and bring sickness and death to the whole household. The cool breeze you instinctively crave is in your mind the carrier of plague, and so you choose to breathe your own recycled stuffy air, believing it to be the healthier, safer option. You are in essence suffocating gently for your own good. Of course, you're not entirely without tools to combat bad air. This brings us to a quirky little gadget you keep on your bedside table. It's a vinaigrette, not the salad dressing, but a small, ornate box, perhaps made of silver or porcelain. It's intricately carved and has a perforated lid. You pick it up, it's cool and heavy in your palm. You open the hinged lid, and inside there's another inner lid also perforated. Beneath that lies a tiny sponge. Earlier in the day, you would have soaked this sponge in a potent mixture of aromatic vinegar infused with herbs like lavender, mint, or rosemary. You lift the vinaigrette to your nose and inhale deeply. The scent is sharp, acidic, and powerfully herbal. The strong, clean smell is believed to be a potent antidote to miasma. The idea is not to kill germs, you don't know what those are, but to fight bad air with good air. By inhaling this powerful, pleasant scent, you are purifying the air before it enters your lungs, creating a protective aromatic shield. Ladies and gentlemen would carry these with them when walking through smelly city streets, holding them to their noses to ward off the perceived dangers. At night, it's your personal air freshener and disease prevention device, all in one tiny, beautiful box. Historians still argue about how long the fear of night air persisted in the popular consciousness even after germ theory began to gain scientific acceptance in the 1860s and 70s. Scientific papers are one thing. Changing the deeply ingrained habits and fears of millions of people is another. Even Florence Nightingale, a famous advocate for hygiene and fresh air in hospitals, had to fight an uphill battle against doctors and nurses who were convinced that opening a window in a ward at night was tantamount to murder. The transition was slow, and the old fears lingered for decades. For many, the idea that the invisible thing you couldn't smell germs was more dangerous than the invisible thing you could miasma was deeply counterintuitive. So you put the vinaigrette back on the table. You glance at the tightly sealed window one last time, the fabric sausage holding its post. The wind might be howling softly outside, but it cannot get in. You are safe from the invisible poisons of the night. The air in your bed fortress might be a bit thick-scented with old linen candle wax and your own breath, but it is your air. It is known. It is safe. You pull the covers a little tighter, take a shallow breath of the warm, familiar air, and decide, that stuffy is a small price to pay for survival. You've made peace with the stuffy air, trusting in the hermetic seal of your room and the dubious protection of your vinaigrette. You are warm, you are cleanish, and you are dressed for a polar expedition. All the major preparations are complete. But as you settle back against the pillows, a faint familiar pressure begins to build. It's the inevitable biological reality that no amount of Victorian ingenuity can wish away. You need to use the toilet. This, in the middle of a cold, dark night, presents a significant logistical challenge. There is no ensuite bathroom down the hall lit by a soft night light. The water closet, if your house is modern enough to even have one, is likely located in a small, cold room downstairs, or possibly in an outbuilding. The journey there is a daunting prospect, leaving your warm bed, navigating a dark and freezing house, and dealing with a noisy water-guzzling contraption. It's an ordeal to be avoided at all costs. Fortunately, you are prepared. For this most essential of human needs, you have the single most ubiquitous and indispensable gadget of the pre-plumbing era, the chamber pot. You reach down beside your bed, your hand searching in the darkness below the frame. Your fingers find a cool, smooth, curved ceramic handle. You carefully draw the object out from its hiding place. In the soft candlelight, it has a certain humble dignity. It's a wide, sturdy pot usually made of earthenware or porcelain with a flared rim and a single handle. Its design has been perfected over centuries for stability and ease of use. This is your personal portable bedside toilet. Using it requires a certain amount of gymnastic skill and a deep commitment to not leaving the warmth of your bed. You don't get out. You simply sit up, swing your legs over the side of the bed, and position the pot strategically on the floor. Or for the truly adept, you might manage the entire operation from a semi-reclined position under the covers. It's a clumsy, slightly awkward affair performed in near darkness, guided more by memory and muscle control than by sight. The sound of its use, a gentle splashing in the profound silence of the night, is a familiar if slightly embarrassing domestic symphony. This is the mainstream, unavoidable reality of nightly life for everyone from the lowest servant to Queen Victoria herself. Every bedroom had a chamber pot, often discreetly hidden away in a dedicated piece of furniture. You might have a pot cupboard, a small bedside cabinet with a door to conceal the vessel, or more elaborately, a commode, a handsome wooden chair with a hinged seat that lifts to reveal a specially shaped pot nestled within. This allowed a person to sit in a more natural, dignified position, but for most the simple pot on the floor would suffice. Now for the quirky details. These were not always plain functional white objects. The chamber pot was a canvas for decoration and surprisingly for humor. It was common to find them painted with elaborate floral patterns, pastoral scenes, or even political caricatures. A particularly popular and recurring design, especially in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, was to have the face of a disliked public figure like Napoleon painted on the inside bottom of the pot. It was a small private act of daily defiance. Another common motif was a large painted eye at the bottom, often accompanied by a cheeky phrase like, "I see you." It was a bit of bawdy everyday humor to lighten a mundane task. Historians still debate the complex social etiquette surrounding the chamber pot. The question of who was responsible for slopping out the morning chore of emptying the pot's contents was deeply tied to class and gender. In a wealthy household, it was unequivocally the job of a junior housemaid. Her first task of the day would be to go from room to room collecting the used pots, carrying them down to the slop sink or an outdoor drain, emptying them, cleaning them with a harsh brush and carbolic soap, and returning them to the bedrooms. In a middle-class home with fewer servants, it might be the lady of the house who discreetly handled her own. In a working-class family, the duty would likely fall to one of the women or older children. It was a messy, unpleasant, but absolutely essential part of maintaining a hygienic home. Having completed your business, you face the same dilemma you did with the wash basin. What do you do with it now? The answer is the same. You certainly don't embark on a perilous, sloshing journey through the dark house. You carefully slide the used pot back under the bed or tuck it away in its cupboard. There it will remain a silent and fragrant companion until the morning light brings with it the duty of slopping out. You slide back into the center of the bed, pulling the covers high. You have successfully navigated another of the night's great challenges without sacrificing your precious warmth. You are surrounded by the evidence of your body's functions, the basin of used wash water in the corner, the pot of waste beneath your bed. To our modern sensibilities, it seems unhygienic, almost unthinkable. To you, it is simply normal. It is the practical, common-sense solution to the problems of the night. The house is quiet once more. The candle flame is steady. Your book awaits. With the necessary but unglamorous business of the chamber pot concluded, a sense of finality settles over you. There are no more tasks, no more bodily needs to attend to. The night is truly your own. Now a quiet stretch of time before sleep finally claims you. You adjust your pillows, propping yourself up comfortably against the headboard. The heavy flannel of your nightgown and the wool of your nightcap are a cozy, non-negotiable presence. Now is the time for the last pleasure of the day, a little light reading. You reach for the book you left on the bedside table. It's a novel, perhaps the latest installment of a Dickens story published in monthly parts, or a sensational sensation novel by someone like Wilkie Collins. The binding is handsome cloth or leather, and the pages are thick and creamy. Reading is one of the great pastimes of your era, a way to be transported, educated, and entertained. And reading in bed is a particularly cherished luxury. But this simple act is not without its own set of specific gadgets. Your single candle, while providing a lovely soft glow, is not ideal for reading. The light is weak and you have to hold the book at an awkward angle to catch the best of it. This is a common problem with a number of ingenious, if slightly fussy, solutions. One such device you might employ is a book holder. It's a small, adjustable lectern, sometimes made of brass or wood, that sits on your bedside table. You can place your book upon it, and it holds the pages open for you at the perfect angle for reading, leaving your hands free. Some were even designed to clip onto the bed frame itself. It's a simple invention, but one that alleviates the tired arms and strained neck that come from holding a heavy book for a long time. To enhance the meager light of your candle, you might have a candle reflector. This is a polished sheet of metal, usually silver plate or brass, that you position strategically behind the candle flame. It catches the light that would otherwise be wasted, illuminating the wall behind you, and reflects it forward onto the pages of your book. It can nearly double the effective brightness of your candle, making the small print much easier to decipher. It's a simple, elegant application of basic physics to solve a common nightly frustration. This brings us to a mainstream historical point. The eyesight of the Victorian population was on the whole not great. Poor nutrition, untreated eye conditions, and the strain of reading and performing close work in perpetually dim light meant that many people needed some form of vision correction. And if your eyesight was failing, you would have another essential bedside reading aid: your spectacles. Or for a touch of class, a lorgnette, a pair of glasses held up to the eyes with a handle. For reading fine print in flickering candlelight, these were absolutely essential. And here is a quirky fringe gadget for the truly dedicated bibliophile: the polyfocal reading glass. This wasn't a pair of spectacles, but a single large magnifying lens mounted on an articulated arm. You could clamp this contraption to your bedside table and swing the lens out over your book, adjusting its height and angle to magnify the text. It was a bit like a modern-day hobbyist's magnifying lamp, but powered by candlelight and Victorian ingenuity. These were not common, but they were advertised in catalogs and journals as the ultimate solution for aging eyes and long winter nights. Historians still debate the true literacy rates and reading habits of the Victorian era, while the proliferation of cheap books, magazines, and newspapers suggests a vast and hungry reading public. How much of this reading was done, and by whom, is a complex question. Diaries and letters show that for the middle and upper classes, reading aloud was a common family activity in the evening. The solitary act of reading in bed was a more personal, private pleasure. For the working classes, who often worked brutally long hours, the time, energy, and light for reading might have been luxuries they simply couldn't afford, even if they had the ability. Your quiet, solitary reading session is a clear marker of your relatively privileged position. You adjust your candle reflector, getting the angle just right so the light falls perfectly on the page. The tiny black letters stand out in sharp relief. You lose yourself in the story, the world of the novel, more real and immediate than the cold, dark room beyond your curtains. The candle burns down slowly, the wax melting and pooling in the saucer of the brass holder. The only sound is the impossibly faint whisper of the page as you turn it. This is a moment of pure, quiet contentment. All the elaborate rituals and strange gadgets of the night, the warming pan, the nightcap, the chamber pot, the draft excluder, have all served their purpose. They have created this small, safe, warm bubble of time and space where you can be perfectly at peace. The anxieties of the day, the worries of the world all fade away. There is only you, your book, and the steady, faithful flame of your candle, holding the immense darkness of the 19th century night at bay. The candle flame dips and flickers, its light growing weaker as the wick shortens. You've been reading for what feels like a comfortable eternity, the narrative of your novel, a gentle, lulling current. Your eyelids are beginning to feel heavy, the words on the page starting to blur slightly at the edges. But as you prepare to give in to sleep, you find that your mind is still active. The story is still turning over in your head, and the deep, restful calm you seek remains just out of reach. It's a common complaint, being tired but not sleepy. For this particular ailment, you, like millions of your contemporaries, have a whole pharmacy of solutions available to you right there on your bedside table. You turn your attention from your book to a small collection of bottles and tins. This is your arsenal in the war against sleeplessness, a fascinating and slightly troubling world of Victorian patent medicine. Your gaze falls on a small dark blue glass bottle with a cork stopper. The paper label, printed in an ornate, confident font, proclaims it to be Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup. The label promises immediate relief for the wakeful and fretful, and ensuring a natural, quiet sleep. It sounds perfect. What the label doesn't prominently mention is the syrup's primary active ingredient, morphine. A healthy dose of it, too. This concoction was one of the most popular patent medicines of the 19th century, marketed heavily towards mothers for fussy children, but widely used by adults for everything from anxiety to insomnia. You know it works. A small spoonful of the thick, sweet syrup, and within half an hour a warm, heavy sense of tranquility would wash over you, dulling your thoughts and pulling you down into a deep, dreamless slumber. It's reliable, it's effective, and it is, of course, dangerously addictive. But in an age before stringent drug regulations, it was sold openly and legally by chemists and grocers. This is the mainstream reality of self-medication in your time. The market was flooded with patent medicines, so-called not because they were genuinely patented in the modern sense, but because they were proprietary formulas. These remedies made extravagant claims and were backed by aggressive modern-style advertising campaigns in newspapers and magazines. They were the first consumer brands, creating household names out of mysterious and often dangerous concoctions. Next to the syrup is a small flat tin. The lid is printed with the words, Dr. Moffat's Poppy Pills, the Sleeper's Friend. This is a more direct approach. These little pills are quite simply opium. Opium, derived from the poppy plant, was the undisputed king of Victorian painkillers and sedatives. It was cheaper than alcohol, widely available, and seen as a perfectly respectable remedy for a vast range of ailments, from coughs and colds to neuralgia and, of course, sleeplessness. You might take a small pill, or perhaps you prefer your opium in liquid form as laudanum, which we'll get to. The effect is profound, a deep and powerful sedation that erases all anxiety and discomfort. And now for a truly quirky tidbit, another bottle in your bedside collection. This one contains bromidia, a popular sedative that advertised itself as the hypnotic. Its key ingredients were potassium bromide, chloral hydrate, and cannabis extract. It was a potent cocktail of depressants. The inclusion of cannabis is fascinating. While we think of it as a recreational drug in the 19th century, it was primarily a pharmaceutical ingredient, valued for its sedative and pain-relieving properties and used in many patent remedies, often marketed as a nerve tonic. The idea of taking a swig of a morphine bromide and cannabis cocktail to help you drift off seems shocking to us, but to you it's simply medicine. You are not a drug user. You are a patient treating a condition. Historians still debate the extent to which the Victorian public understood the addictive nature of these remedies. While the concept of opium eating and its miserable consequences was known thanks to works like Thomas de Quincey's Confessions of an English Opium Eater, this was often seen as a moral failing, a dissipation of the literary or artistic classes. The respectable middle-class housewife like yourself taking a measured medicinal dose of Mrs. Winslow's syrup for her nerves was seen in a completely different light. The line between medicine and addiction was blurry, and the manufacturers of these products had no interest in clarifying it. They sold relief in a bottle, and business was booming. You look at the collection of bottles tonight, you think you don't need anything quite so potent. You're just looking for a gentle nudge, not a chemical kosh. You bypass the syrups and pills and reach for a simpler remedy. It's a small box of night-scented stock pastilles. These are little lozenges made of sugar and floral extracts. The idea is not to ingest a powerful drug, but to let the gentle calming scent of the flower fill your senses as the pastille dissolves slowly in your mouth. It's a form of aromatherapy, a belief that certain scents could have a direct calming effect on the nerves. You pop one into your mouth. The taste is sweet and perfumed. You lean back, extinguish your candle with a gentle puff of breath, and plunge the world back into darkness. The only sensation now is the floral sweetness dissolving on your tongue and the profound quiet of the house. You decide to let nature, aided by a little sugar and scent, take its course. The heavy hitters, the opiates and bromides, will remain in their bottles, silent guardians of a guaranteed sleep you're glad you don't need tonight. The sugary, floral taste of the pastille dissolves slowly in your mouth, a gentle and pleasant distraction. You lie in the absolute darkness, waiting for its subtle magic to work, for your mind to finally quiet down. But after 10 minutes, you are still stubbornly, frustratingly awake. Your thoughts are still circling, refusing to settle. The small anxieties of the day, the plans for tomorrow, the lingering plot of your novel, they all churn in a low-level mental hum. The pastille was a nice idea, but it's not cutting it. It's time to bring out the big guns. You sigh a small sound in the vast silence. You reach out a hand into the darkness, your fingers expertly finding the familiar shape of the match striker on your bedside table. With a practiced scrape and a fizz, a match flares to life momentarily, blinding you. You light your candle once more, the soft, warm glow pushing back the oppressive dark. You're back on the clock, a reluctant insomniac fighting for rest. Your eyes go to the small, dark blue bottle of Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup. The promise of its morphine-laced comfort is tempting, but a small part of you is wary of its power. You're not looking for oblivion, just for peace, and so your hand moves to a different bottle. This one is made of green glass, and it's about half full of a dark reddish-brown liquid. The label is simple, probably handwritten by the local chemist. It reads, laudanum. This is without a doubt the single most important and widely used substance in the Victorian medicine cabinet. Laudanum is a tincture of opium, meaning that opium has been dissolved in alcohol. The alcohol acts as a preservative and makes it easy to measure and administer. It was the go-to remedy for an astonishingly wide range of ailments, pain of any kind, coughing, diarrhea, anxiety, and most famously sleeplessness. It was cheap, it was legal, and it was everywhere. You uncork the bottle. The smell is sharp and distinctive, the bitter medicinal scent of opium mixed with the alcoholic tang of the tincture. It's not a pleasant smell, but it is the smell of relief. You pour a small amount, a carefully measured dose, into a spoon. You know the right amount from long experience. Too little, and it won't work too much, and the morning will bring a dull headache and a thick, sluggish feeling. Getting the dose just right is a domestic science. This casual medicalized use of a powerful narcotic is a defining feature of your era. It was not seen as a vice, but as a sensible part of managing one's health. A mainstream historical fact is that laudanum was used by people from every walk of life. Famous figures like Charles Dickens, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and even the family of Prime Minister William Gladstone used it regularly. It crossed all class boundaries. The lady of the manor used it for her nerves, and the factory worker used it for his chronic cough or the pain of an injury. It was the great equalizer of Victorian suffering. But here's a quirky and rather dark tidbit about its accessibility. Because it was so common and unregulated, it was also a disturbingly popular method for self-destruction. The phrase, an overdose of laudanum, appears with tragic regularity in 19th century coroners' reports. Its ubiquity and potency made it an all-too-easy exit for those in despair. So as you hold that spoon, you are holding a substance that is simultaneously seen as a gentle, soothing balm and a potent, final poison. Your relationship with it is one of careful respect. You take the dose, you swallow the bitter alcoholic liquid in one quick gulp, chasing it with a sip of the cold water from the pitcher on your washstand. You cork the bottle, place it back on your bedside table, and then with a sense of purpose, you blow out the candle for what you hope is the final time tonight. You lie back in the darkness and wait. The effects are not immediate. It takes 10 to 15 minutes for the opium to begin its work. At first, you feel nothing. The same thoughts are still turning in your mind. But then a subtle shift begins. A pleasant spreading warmth starts in your stomach, a gentle internal version of the warming pan's heat. This warmth seems to travel up through your chest and into your limbs. Your muscles, which were unconsciously tense, begin to relax. The faint ache in your lower back from your stiff drawing room chair disappears. Then the true magic begins. The churning thoughts in your head don't so much vanish as become unimportant. They lose their sharp, nagging edges. They become soft, fuzzy, and distant like sounds heard from another room. The anxieties that seemed so pressing just minutes ago now seem trivial, almost comical. A profound sense of emotional detachment settles over you. It's not a giddy or euphoric high, but a deep, unshakable calm. It's the feeling that everything is all right and everything is going to be all right. Historians still debate how to classify the vast population of regular laudanum users. Were they addicts in the modern sense, or were they simply patients engaged in long-term treatment for chronic conditions like pain or anxiety in an era with no other effective options? The Victorian concept of addiction was closely tied to the loss of control and the inability to function in society. As long as you took your measured dose, ran your household, and maintained your respectability, you were not an addict. You were simply using your medicine. It's a line that is both incredibly fine and culturally significant. The laudanum has you now. Your breathing has become slower, deeper. Your limbs feel heavy and wonderfully relaxed. The stuffy air in your bed fortress no longer bothers you. Nothing bothers you. You are floating in a warm, dark, peaceful sea. Sleep is no longer a destination you are striving for. It is a gentle tide, rising up to carry you away. Your last conscious thought is one of quiet gratitude for the chemist who prepared this bottle, this little miracle of bitter relief. The deep, dreamless peace promised by the laudanum envelops you for a time. But tonight, for some reason, its hold is incomplete. You find yourself surfacing, drifting up from the depths of induced slumber into a state of hazy semi-consciousness. You're not fully awake, but you're not asleep either. You are aware of the darkness, the slight stuffiness of the air, the weight of the blankets. Your mind, however, is blissfully calm and detached, thanks to the opium. You are simply there. This experience, this frustrating inability to achieve a full night of restorative sleep, is a source of great anxiety for many Victorians. And in the quest for a cure, some turn away from the chemical solutions of the chemist's shop and towards a new and exciting field of medicine, one that uses the simplest substance on earth, water. This is the era of hydrotherapy, or the water cure, and it has a number of very strange prescriptions for the insomniac. Lying in your bed, your mind drifts to a conversation you had with a friend, a zealous advocate for hydrotherapy. She dismissed your reliance on laudanum and patent medicines. You are merely drugging the senses, she had said, not curing the underlying nervous derangement. Her recommendation, the wet sheet wrap. In your mind's eye, you imagine the procedure she described with such enthusiasm. It would begin with you being stripped of your cozy flannel nightgown. Then a large, coarse linen sheet would be plunged into a bucket of ice-cold water wrung out so it wasn't dripping and then laid out on your bed. You would be instructed to lie down upon this shockingly cold, damp sheet. Immediately, your body would revolt. The cold would be breathtaking, a violent assault on your warm skin. But this initial shock, your friend explained, was the key. The hydrotherapist, or dipper, would then swiftly and expertly wrap the cold, wet sheet tightly around you from your neck to your toes, encasing you like a mummy. Your arms would be pinned to your sides. You would be completely immobilized, a human burrito in a cold, damp tortilla. As soon as you were wrapped, several thick, dry woolen blankets would be piled on top of you, tucking you in tightly to prevent any heat from escaping. The first few minutes would be pure misery. The intense cold would make you shiver uncontrollably. But then a physiological reaction would begin. Your body, in a desperate attempt to fight the cold, would start to generate a tremendous amount of heat. Your heart rate would increase, your circulation would ramp up, and you would begin to warm the wet sheet from the inside out. After 10 to 20 minutes of this internal battle, the reaction would be complete. The sheet would no longer feel cold. It would be warm and then hot, and you would be lying in a self-generated steam bath. This is the mainstream application of hydrotherapy, a popular alternative medicine movement of the mid-19th century. Spas and hydropathic establishments sprung up across the country, particularly in scenic areas like Malvern. Patients would check in for weeks at a time to undergo a rigorous daily schedule of cold baths, high-pressure water jets, and of course the wet sheet wrap. It was believed to cure everything from gout to depression to, yes, insomnia. Now for the quirky tidbit. The theory behind the wet sheet wrap was a fascinating blend of primitive physiology and almost mystical belief. Proponents claimed that the process drew out the diseases from the body. They believed that the copious sweat you produced in your woolen cocoon was literally the illness leaving your system. Some practitioners would even read the sweat, examining its color and odor for clues to the patient's underlying maladies. Furthermore, the wrap was considered not just a physical treatment, but a moral one. The initial shock and discomfort were seen as a form of discipline for the nerves, a way to toughen up a system weakened by the overstimulation of modern life. Historians still debate the reasons for hydrotherapy's immense popularity. Was it a genuine placebo effect where the sheer drama and intensity of the treatment convinced people they were getting better? Was it a reaction against the often brutal and ineffective treatments of mainstream medicine like bleeding and purging? Or was there some genuine, if misunderstood, physiological benefit to the repeated exposure to hot and cold temperatures? The social aspect of the hydro spas, where middle-class people could mingle and share in their collective cure, was certainly a major factor. It was as much a vacation as it was a medical treatment. You shudder in your warm, dry bed at the mere thought of the wet sheet wrap. The idea of being willingly encased in a cold, clammy prison seems like a form of self-inflicted punishment. You much prefer the gentle, passive sedation of your laudanum. It is a soft, quiet solution, a negotiation with your sleeplessness, not an all-out war. The laudanum's calming effect reasserts itself. The imaginary chill of the wet sheet fades from your mind, replaced by the deep, opium-induced tranquility. You are grateful for your dry flannel nightgown, your warm blankets, your non-therapeutic bed. The world of hydrotherapy, with its vigorous bracing and frankly unpleasant methods, can stay in your friend's enthusiastic letters. Your path to slumber is a gentler one, a quiet chemical whisper in the dark, not a shivering, suffocating shout. You sink back down into the warm, brown sea of laudanum-laced sleep, leaving the water cure to more adventurous souls. The peaceful tide of laudanum-induced sleep carries you along for a few more hours, a placid journey through dreamless quiet. But then, unexpectedly, you surface again. This time, however, it's not a gentle drift into semi-consciousness. You are woken by a sound, a faint rhythmic scratching seemingly coming from the wall near your head. Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch. Your heart gives a little flutter of alarm. The house is supposed to be silent. The deep, drug-induced calm you felt is momentarily shattered by a jolt of adrenaline. Is it a mouse in the walls, a loose branch scraping against the window pane? Or is it something else? Something trying to get in your mind, still fuzzy from sleep races through the terrifying possibilities fed by penny dreadful novels and sensational newspaper reports. Then you remember, it's Tuesday. And that sound is not a threat. It's a promise of a cure. You had forgotten that in a fit of experimental desperation last week you had ordered a new device. A marvel of modern science advertised in the back of a popular journal. It was guaranteed to cure nervous affections, sleeplessness, and general debility by harnessing the invisible and mysterious power of electricity. In your mind you picture the contraption. It's Dr. Pulvermacher's patent electric belt. You had paid a pretty penny for it. The device itself is a chain of small zinc and copper elements linked together and embedded in a soft fabric belt. The instructions were very specific. Before going to bed, you were to soak the entire belt in vinegar. The acidic vinegar would react with the two different metals, turning the entire belt into a weak galvanic battery. You were then to wrap this damp, metallic, vinegar-scented belt directly around your waist against your skin and wear it all night. The faint but continuous electric current it produced was supposed to soothe the nerves, rebalance the body's vital forces, and promote deep, natural sleep. This is the strange and wonderful world of Victorian electrical quackery. The discovery and harnessing of electricity in the 19th century was as miraculous and transformative as the rise of the internet in our own time. It was a powerful, invisible force that could create light drive machines and send messages across continents in an instant. It was pure magic. And whenever a new and poorly understood technology emerges, so too do the charlatans and entrepreneurs who promise to apply its magic to the human body. The market was flooded with these electrotherapeutic devices. There were electric hairbrushes that promised to cure baldness, electric corsets to improve the figure and vitality, and electric rings to ward off rheumatism. This wasn't a fringe belief. It was surprisingly mainstream. People were fascinated by electricity and were perfectly willing to believe it held the key to health. The advertisements were filled with scientific-sounding jargon and enthusiastic testimonials from satisfied customers. And now for a quirky and slightly shocking detail. The scratching sound that woke you up is not part of the belt's intended function. The belt is supposed to be silent. The scratching is coming from a different, even more bizarre electrical device you had set up. It's a magnetic alarm bed. This was a bed frame that had been specially modified to be connected to a large battery and an electromagnet. The alarm part of its name wasn't for waking you up, but for alerting you to intruders. But it had another therapeutic function. You could set a clockwork timer to pass a gentle and intermittent magnetic current through the entire bed frame at various points in the night. The theory was that sleeping within this gentle magnetic field would align your body's iron particles, promoting circulation and calming the nervous system. The scratching sound is the relay switch clicking on and off as it sends a pulse of energy through the bed's frame. You are, in essence, trying to sleep inside a giant, low-powered electromagnet. Historians still debate what drove this craze for electrical cures. Was it a genuine, if misplaced, faith in the power of science? Was it a desire for a modern cure that didn't involve the unpleasantness of hydrotherapy or the addictive potential of opiates? Or was it simply a testament to the power of marketing and the public's endless appetite for a miracle cure? These devices offered a sense of control, a feeling that you were actively using the great forces of the modern age to combat your personal ailments. It was scientific, it was sophisticated, and it didn't involve getting cold and wet. The rhythmic scratching continues. Scratch. Scratch. You try to relax into it, to believe in the promise. You try to feel the invisible currents flowing through your body from the damp, vinegary belt around your waist and the magnetic pulses emanating from the bed frame beneath you. Are your nerves being soothed? Is your vital force being rebalanced? It's impossible to say. What you can say for sure is that you are now lying in a damp, vinegar-soaked belt on a bed that is making a strange periodic scratching noise, and you are most definitely awake. The laudanum's gentle embrace has been broken by the very devices meant to enhance your sleep. The promise of a high-tech electrical slumber has resulted in a low-tech, noisy failure. With a sigh of profound exasperation, you decide to abandon the experiment. You can't reach the switch for the magnetic bed without getting out from under the covers, a journey you're not prepared to make. But you can deal with the belt. You untie the damp, clammy contraption from around your waist and drop it unceremoniously onto the floor. The relief is immediate. You lie back down. The scratching continues its maddening rhythm, a testament to your failed experiment in modern medicine. You pull your pillow over your head to muffle the sound. The gentle, reliable, and decidedly non-electrical piece of laudanum, you reflect, is looking better and better. The incessant, rhythmic scratching of your magnetic alarm bed is a maddening counterpoint to the deep quiet you crave. You've pulled the pillow over your head, but the sound, or perhaps the vibration, still seems to penetrate, a tiny mechanical woodpecker tapping at the edges of your consciousness. The vinegar-soaked electric belt lies in a sad, damp heap on the floor. Your grand experiment in electrotherapy is an abject failure. Frustrated, you lie in the dark, and your mind begins to do what anxious, sleepless minds do. Best, it begins to worry. But you don't worry about the things we might worry about today. Work emails, global news, social media, anxieties. Your worries are distinctly Victorian. You begin to fret about the why. Why can't you sleep? And your mind cycles through the prevailing psychological and physiological theories of your day. Your first worry is about digestion. You cast your mind back to dinner hours ago. It was a hearty meal, roast mutton potatoes, a thick gravy, followed by a substantial sweat pudding. It was delicious, but now, in the quiet of the night, you wonder if it was wise. The leading medical advice of your era is unequivocal. A heavy meal, late in the evening, is a primary cause of sleeplessness and, even worse, nightmares. Doctors and popular health manuals constantly warn against the indigestible supper. The theory, a mainstream belief, is that a full stomach draws vital energy and blood away from the brain to the digestive organs. This diversion of energy is said to leave the brain in a weakened, irritable state, prone to morbid fancies and unsettled thoughts. Furthermore, the physical pressure of a full stomach on the diaphragm is thought to restrict the lungs and heart, leading to a feeling of oppression and unease. As you lie there, you can almost feel the weight of that sweat pudding, a leaden anchor in your gut, pulling you away from the peaceful shores of sleep. You make a mental note tomorrow: only a light broth and a piece of dry toast for supper. Your next wave of anxiety centers on mental stimulation. You think about the novel you were reading, that thrilling tale of mystery and intrigue. Was it too exciting? Another cornerstone of Victorian sleep hygiene is the belief that the mind, like a muscle, can be overexerted. Reading sensational fiction, engaging in a heated political debate after dinner, or even dwelling on complex business matters before bed is considered profoundly unwise. This is the quirky and very Victorian fear of overstimulation. The brain, it is thought, is a delicate instrument. If you fill it with exciting or troubling thoughts just before sleeping, it will continue to vibrate with that energy all night long, like a bell that has been struck. The ideal state for sleep is a mind that is not empty, but placid. You should aim for a mental state of gentle, bland contentment. You mentally review your bookshelf. Perhaps you should switch from Mr. Collins's thrilling mysteries to a volume of gentle poetry, or a dull but morally uplifting sermon. The excitement of a good story, you now worry, has come at the cost of your rest. And this leads to your deepest, most nagging fear, the worry about worrying itself. You are caught in the classic insomniac's paradox. You are anxious about being sleepless, and that anxiety is precisely what is keeping you awake. Victorian physicians had a name for this condition: cerebral hyperemia, a fancy term for too much blood in the brain. They imagined the thoughts and worries of the insomniac as a kind of mental friction generating heat and drawing blood to the head, creating a vicious cycle of arousal and anxiety. Historians still debate the cultural roots of this intense focus on the mental and moral dimensions of sleep. Was it tied to the Protestant work ethic, where a good night's sleep was seen as necessary preparation for a productive day, and insomnia a sign of a disordered inner life? Was it a reaction to the increasing pace and mental demands of industrial and urban life? Or was it simply a way of trying to impose order and a sense of control on a biological process that is for many stubbornly unpredictable? Whatever the reason, the burden of sleeplessness was placed squarely on the individual's shoulders. It was your diet, your reading habits, your very thoughts that were to blame. You lie there trapped in this web of self-recrimination. You ate too much. You read something too exciting. You are now thinking too much about it all. You are the architect of your own wakefulness. It is a heavy burden to bear in the middle of the night. The scratching of the magnetic bed continues its patient, maddening rhythm. It seems to be mocking you, a tiny mechanical metronome, marking out the seconds of your failure. You feel a surge of frustration, not just at the machine, but at yourself. Why can't you simply Will yourself to sleep. Why can't you command your own mind to be quiet? The laudanum has worn off enough for these anxieties to take root, but it has left a residual calm that keeps them from spiraling into true panic. They are more like a swarm of annoying buzzing flies than a pack of ravenous wolves. They are a distraction, a source of profound irritation, a mental itch you cannot scratch. And so you lie there in your expensive, technologically advanced sleep-promoting bed, wide awake and worrying about suet pudding. The irony is not lost on you even in your weary state. The night wears on a slow, dark marathon. The maddening scratch of the magnetic bed has finally been defeated, not by technology or willpower, but by the simple act of you getting out of your warm cocoon, stumbling through the dark and fumbling with the switch until the cursed thing fell silent. The silence that rushes back in is a blessing, a profound and welcome relief. You are back in bed now, the brief shocking exposure to the room's cold air having left you shivering, but victorious. As you lie there waiting for warmth and sleep to return, your attention shifts from the anxieties of your mind to the physical reality of the bed beneath you. You've thought about the bed curtains, the warming pan, the night clothes, but you haven't considered the very surface you're lying on. What exactly is this Victorian mattress made of? You press your hand down on the mattress beside you. It's firm, very firm. There's a certain rustle to it, a faint crinkling sound as you apply pressure. This is a long way from the memory foam and pocketed coils of the future. You are lying on a dense landscape of packed organic matter. The foundational layer of most Victorian beds, and certainly of yours, is the tick. This is a large bag the size of the mattress made of a tough, tightly woven cotton or linen fabric called ticking. The tight weave is crucial because its job is to contain the stuffing and prevent sharp bits from poking through. And the stuffing itself could be a number of things. In a humble rural cottage, it might be straw or dried leaves, which would need to be changed frequently as it compacted and broke down. But in your respectable middle-class home, you have something a bit more upscale: horsehair. This is the mainstream high-quality mattress filling of your time. You are sleeping on a thick, dense pad of curled hair, mostly from the manes and tails of horses. The raw hair was boiled, cleaned, and then tightly twisted into ropes to give it a permanent curl. When the ropes were unspun, the hair would be a springy, resilient mass. This mass was then painstakingly layered and packed into the mattress tick by a skilled upholsterer until it was firm and even. A horsehair mattress was prized for its durability. It could last for decades, and for its supposed hygienic properties. It didn't hold moisture and was well ventilated, which was thought to prevent the buildup of unhealthy miasmas. But even a horsehair mattress was often topped with a second softer mattress for a bit more comfort. This was the feather bed. Just as it sounds, this was another large tick, but this one was filled with down and feathers, usually from geese or ducks. Lying on a feather bed was like lying on a warm, puffy cloud. However, it required constant maintenance. Every morning, as part of making the bed, it would need to be vigorously shaken and fluffed to redistribute the feathers and keep it from becoming a lumpy, compacted mess. So the surface you're on is a layered system, a firm, resilient base of horsehair topped with a softer, yielding layer of feathers. It's a combination that provides both support and a degree of softness. Now for the quirky tidbit, a less common but fascinating mattress filling seaweed. Along coastal communities, particularly in Britain, dried seaweed, specifically a type of rack, was used as a mattress stuffing. It was naturally springy, and when dried it was said to have a fresh sea breeze scent, but its main selling point was the belief that it was completely resistant to fleas and other vermin. The faint crackling sound it made when you moved was considered a small price to pay for a pest-free night's sleep. Some even claimed the iodine in the seaweed was released in minute quantities as you slept, providing therapeutic benefits for your thyroid and general constitution. Historians still debate the Victorian experience of comfort. When we look at their beds with their firm, rustling mattresses and lack of modern springing, we tend to assume they must have been terribly uncomfortable. But was that their reality? Comfort is to a large extent what you're used to. A Victorian transported to a modern, super soft memory foam mattress might find it unnervingly squishy and unsupportive. They were accustomed to a firm sleeping surface, and they associated that firmness with health and a straight spine. Our idea of sinking into a mattress would have likely been seen as unhealthy and indulgent. You shift your weight on the bed. You can feel the dense, packed resilience of the horsehair beneath the softer give of the feather bed. It's not uncomfortable. It's just solid. It holds you rather than yielding to you. It's a dependable, sturdy presence in the dark. It doesn't bounce or jiggle. It simply is. Thinking about the sheer labor involved, the harvesting of the horsehair, the plucking of the geese, the meticulous skilled work of the upholsterer who stuffed and stitched this very mattress, is strangely calming. You are lying on a product of immense and patient effort. You're supported by the hair of 1,000 horses, cushioned by the feathers of 100 geese. The bed feels less like a manufactured object and more like a piece of the natural world tamed and shaped for your rest. The anxieties about your mind and your digestion begin to fade, replaced by a new awareness of the physical, tangible world beneath you. The solid, reliable mattress becomes an anchor holding you steady in the dark, quiet room. And slowly, finally, your thoughts begin to quiet, and the gentle pull of true, unmedicated sleep begins to return. The comforting solidity of your horsehair and feather mattress has finally started to lull you into a genuine state of drowsiness. The mental anxieties have receded, the failed electrical experiments are forgotten, and a fragile peace descends. You are on the very brink of sleep, that delicious moment when consciousness begins to dissolve. And then you hear it. Clang, clang, clang. It's the sound of a church bell somewhere in the distance striking the hour. 4 o'clock in the morning. The sound is clear and sharp in the cold, still air. And once you've heard it, you start to hear everything else. The gentle quiet you are enjoying is revealed to be an illusion. The city is not asleep. It's just less awake. From the street below, you hear the slow, rhythmic clop, clop, clop of a single horse pulling a heavy cart. The iron-shod hooves on the cobblestones are a sharp, percussive sound. The iron-rimmed wheels of the cart add a low, grinding rumble. This is probably a market gardener making his pre-dawn journey into the city center to get the best spot at Covent Garden or Billingsgate. For him, the day has already begun. A few moments later, a different sound joins the mix. A low, mournful whistle from the direction of the river, a steam tug guiding a string of barges on the tide. Then a cacophony of barking erupts from a few streets over a territorial dispute between two neighborhood dogs, sharp and frantic in the stillness. This is the fundamental challenge of urban Victorian sleep, the quest for a quiet night. Your city, London, Manchester, Glasgow, it doesn't matter which, is a living, breathing, noisy machine that never truly shuts down. In an era before zoning laws, residential streets were often mixed with small workshops, stables, and pubs. The noise was constant and unpredictable. So how do you fight back? You have already employed the primary defense, heavy window curtains. Those thick wool drapes which you value for their warmth and darkness also serve as a crucial sound barrier. They muffle the sharpest sounds from the street, turning a piercing clang into a dull thud. This is the mainstream first-line defense against the nightly acoustic assault. But for the truly noise-sensitive, more advanced and quirky gadgets were available. You might have invested in a set of earplugs. These were not the soft foam or silicone plugs of today. A common type was a small ball of wax which you would warm and soften in your hands and then mold to fit the outer part of your ear canal. It created a decent seal against noise, though some people complained of an unpleasant pressurized feeling. Another more elaborate option was the anti-acoustic ventilator. This was a strange-looking device you would fit into a slightly open window. It was a box with a series of baffles and sound-absorbing materials inside, like felt or charcoal, that was supposed to let in fresh air while trapping the sound waves. A noble idea, though its actual effectiveness was highly debatable. One of the most peculiar and charming attempts to combat noise was purely psychological. Some books on household management suggested placing a ticking clock on your bedside table. The theory was that the clock's steady, rhythmic, and predictable sound, tick-tock, tick-tock, would give the ear something to focus on. This constant, gentle noise would mask the more jarring, irregular sounds from outside, acting as a kind of 19th century white noise machine. The familiar domestic sound was thought to be inherently more soothing than the unpredictable symphony of the street. Historians still argue about the true soundscape of the Victorian city and its effect on the population's health. Did people simply become inured to the constant noise, tuning it out through familiarity, or did it contribute to the high levels of nervousness, anxiety, and neurasthenia that Victorian doctors were so fond of diagnosing? Personal diaries are filled with complaints about noisy neighbors, barking dogs, and the incessant rumble of carts. The desire for a quiet home was a powerful driver in the development of the suburbs, as those who could afford it sought to escape the round-the-clock clamor of the city center. You lie in your bed listening. The church bell has finished tolling. The market cart has rumbled on its way. The dogs have settled down. A temporary lull has fallen. But you are now acutely aware of the city's sonic presence. You can almost feel its vibrations through the floorboards. You consider the wax earplugs you keep in a small box in your bedside drawer, but you dislike the stuffy, sealed-in feeling they give you. Instead, you decide to try the clock method. You reach out and carefully move the small brass carriage clock from the mantelpiece to your bedside table. Its ticking is quiet but clear. Tick-tock, tick-tock, a steady mechanical heartbeat in the room. You close your eyes and focus on the sound. It is regular. It is predictable. It is safe. It is the sound of time passing in an orderly fashion within the walls of your own home. Slowly, a new sound from the street begins, the distant cry of a milkman, but it seems less jarring now. It is just another sound layered over the top of the clock's gentle rhythm. The ticking becomes your anchor in a sea of unpredictable noise. You focus all your attention on that tiny repetitive sound. Tick, tock. Each tick is a step away from the noisy world outside. Each tock is a step closer to the quiet world of sleep. The strategy is working. The city can do its worst. You have your tiny ticking defender, and it is bravely holding the chaos at bay. The gentle rhythmic ticking of the carriage clock has become your mantra, a shield against the unpredictable noises of the waking city. You have finally found a fragile peace, a state of drowsy tranquility that feels deep and real. The world outside your curtains, with its rumbling carts and distant shouts, has faded to an irrelevant murmur. You are safe, you are warm, you are moments from sleep, and that is when you hear a new sound. It's not from the street. It's closer, much closer. It's the faint, sharp creak of a floorboard in the hallway just outside your bedroom door. Every muscle in your body tenses. Your eyes snap open in the darkness. The peaceful drowsiness vanishes in a searing flash of pure adrenaline. The clock continues to tick, but it's no longer a comforting sound. It's a mocking countdown. The house is locked. The doors are bolted. You perform the ritual yourself, and yet someone is inside. Your mind floods with the lurid images and stories that fuel Victorian anxieties about crime. You think of the cat burglar, the silent acrobatic thief who can scale walls and slip through upstairs windows. You think of the sensational tales in the newspapers of brazen home invasions. Your fortress has been breached. Fear gives way to a frantic, silent inventory of your defenses. What gadgets do you have right here, right now, to protect yourself from a midnight intruder? Your heart is pounding against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the steady tick-tock of the clock. You slowly, silently reach under your pillow. Your fingers close around the first and most common line of bedside defense, a small, heavy object. It could be a life preserver or, kosh, a short weighted club with a flexible shaft designed to deliver a stunning blow. Or perhaps it's a small, easily handled pistol. The ownership of firearms for personal protection was far less regulated than it is today, and it wouldn't be unusual for a homeowner to keep a small revolver in a bedside drawer for just such an emergency. This is the mainstream and most serious form of Victorian bedside security. But you, being a person of modern taste, and perhaps a more theatrical nature, have invested in something a bit more elaborate. Your gaze darts to the corner of the room where your washstand is. Next to it, you have installed a burglar alarm gun. This quirky device is not a gun in the traditional sense. It's a small brass mechanism that holds a blank gunpowder charge. It is connected to a network of thin, almost invisible wires that you have painstakingly run along the floorboards and across the threshold of your bedroom door. If the intruder were to open the door further, their foot would trip the wire, pulling a pin on the device. This would release a spring-loaded hammer which would strike a percussion cap, igniting the gunpowder. The result would be an absolutely deafening bang, a flash of light, and a cloud of smoke. It wouldn't fire a projectile, but it would be loud enough to wake the dead, terrify the intruder into fleeing, and alert the entire household, and probably the whole street, that something was very wrong. The floorboard creaks again, closer this time. The doorknob begins to turn slowly, silently. You hold your breath. Your hand tightens on the weighted kosh under your pillow. You are frozen, caught between the fight-or-flight instinct. This intense fear of the nightly intruder was a very real part of the Victorian psyche. Historians still debate the primary cause. Was it the actual rise of crime in the rapidly growing anonymous cities, or was it, as we explored with the locking rituals, a moral panic fanned by the press? The figure of the burglar became a kind of Victorian bogeyman, a symbol of the chaos and moral decay that threatened to invade the sanctuary of the middle-class home. These elaborate, sometimes comical security gadgets were a direct response to this deep-seated cultural anxiety. They were as much about providing a sense of control and peace of mind as they were about actually stopping a crime. The door pushes open with a soft shush sound. A dark silhouette stands in the doorway, framed against the faint grayish light of the hallway window. This is it. Your heart is a wild bird trapped in your chest. You brace yourself, ready to bring the kosh down, ready for the deafening roar of the alarm gun. The figure takes one step into the room, and then a small, sleepy voice says, "Mummy, I had a bad dream." The terror evaporates in an instant, replaced by a wave of relief so profound it leaves you feeling weak. It's your youngest child, woken by a nightmare and seeking the safety of your bed. The dreaded intruder is a small, shivering figure in a long, white nightgown clutching a stuffed rabbit. You let out a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding for a full minute. "Oh, my darling," you whisper, your voice hoarse. "You gave me such a fright." You quickly get up, carefully stepping over the tripwire for your own alarm gun. You scoop up the child, who smells of sleep and childish comfort. You carry them back to your bed, settling them in amongst the pillows and heavy blankets. They are asleep again almost instantly, their small body radiating warmth next to yours. You lie back down, your own heart rate slowly returning to normal. You look at the heavy Kosh still lying on the sheet beside you. You think of the elaborate hair-trigger alarm gun waiting silently by the door. You have armed your sanctuary to the teeth, preparing for a monstrous invasion. But the only thing that came through the door was a small, frightened child. The irony is not lost on you. All your gadgets, all your fears were for naught. The greatest threat to your peace tonight was your own imagination. The carriage clock continues its steady ticking, but now it sounds gentle and reassuring again. The fortress is secure. The family is safe. And with the comforting, rhythmic breathing of the child beside you, you finally truly let go and fall into a deep and profound sleep. The unexpected arrival of your child has acted as a strange and wonderful cure for your insomnia. The adrenaline from the false alarm has subsided, leaving in its place a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. The comforting weight and warmth of the small body curled up beside you is a powerful anchor, a physical reassurance that all is well. You are drifting in that perfect, peaceful state just before sleep, the world finally fading to a gentle, quiet hum. But even in this state of near slumber, a part of your mind, the part responsible for the safety of the household, remains on a low alert. As your senses relax, one becomes more acute, your sense of smell. And underneath the familiar sense of the room, the wool of the blankets, the faint floral sweetness of your dissolved pastille, you detect another fainter and more worrying odor. It's the smell of smoke. It's not the acrid, sulfurous smell of a freshly struck match. It's the dry, slightly sooty smell of an old fire of embers that aren't quite dead. Your mind, even in its drowsy state, immediately identifies the source, the fireplace. You turn your head on the pillow to look. The bedroom fireplace is a small cast-iron grate set into a marble mantelpiece. It's not lit. You wouldn't be foolish enough to sleep with an open fire in the bedroom. But earlier in the evening, a small fire might have been lit to take the chill off the room while you were getting ready for bed. Before you got into bed, you would have followed standard procedure, using a poker to spread the remaining coals thinly across the grate to help them burn out faster. The lingering smell of smoke is a reminder of the single greatest, most persistent, and most terrifying threat to any Victorian home fire. Your house is a tinderbox. The wooden floorboards, the heavy furniture, the voluminous curtains, the horsehair stuffed mattress you're lying on, the clothes in the wardrobe, the books on the shelves, all of it is fuel. A single stray spark, a single ember falling from a grate onto a flammable rug could lead to an uncontrollable inferno in minutes. This fear was a constant low-level hum in the background of Victorian life. It's a mainstream historical reality that house fires were devastatingly common. Every family would have known someone or known of someone whose home had been lost to fire. The newspapers were filled with accounts of tragic blazes, often with multiple fatalities. In response to this ever-present danger, you have a number of simple but crucial safety measures in place. The most important of these is the fire screen, or fender. You can just make out its shape in the gloom. It's a low brass fender that sits on the hearth in front of the fireplace, designed to block any embers that might fall or be spat out from the dying fire. For added protection, you might have a taller mesh screen that covers the entire opening of the fireplace. These were not optional decorations, they were essential pieces of safety equipment. Now for a quirky and rather optimistic piece of fire safety technology, the portable fire escape. You don't own one, but you've seen them advertised. One popular model was a length of knotted rope with a large grappling hook on the end, all stored in a handsome wooden box that could be kept under a bed. In the event of a fire, the idea was that you would hurl the grappling hook out of the window, hope it snagged securely on the window ledge or roof line, and then clamber down the rope to safety. A more advanced version replaced the rope with a chain ladder. While a good idea in theory, the thought of your entire family in their bulky flannel nightgowns trying to perform this feat of amateur acrobatics from a third-story window in a panic is a recipe for dark comedy. Historians still debate the effectiveness of early municipal fire brigades. While organized fire services existed, they were often a patchwork of private insurance company-run brigades and poorly equipped parish services. Their response times could be slow, and their equipment horse-drawn hand-pumped engines was often no match for a well-established blaze. For most homeowners, the reality was that if a fire took hold, you had to rely on yourself. Prevention, therefore, was everything. The faint smell of smoke in your room isn't necessarily a sign of active danger. It's more likely the result of a slight downdraft in the chimney, pushing a bit of the residual smoke from the cooled embers back into the room. Still, the smell is a powerful reminder of the potential for disaster. It's a prompt for a mental checklist. Did you ensure the fender was secure before getting into bed? Yes. Did you douse the downstairs fires with a little water before coming up? You think so. Did the maid remember to clear the hearth of any stray scraps of paper or lint this morning? You hope so. This constant low-grade fire anxiety was part of the price of living with the comforts of the Victorian age. The very things that made your home warm and cozy, the coal fires, the candles, the gas lights, were also the things that made it dangerous. Every night was a small act of faith, a gamble that the flickering flames you relied on for light and heat would stay where they belonged. The small child beside you stirs, muttering something in their sleep. The immediate living warmth of them is a comfort. You pull the heavy blankets a little tighter around you both. The smell of smoke seems to be fading, or perhaps your nose has just grown accustomed to it. You decide it's nothing to worry about. The fire screen is in place. The house is quiet. The greatest danger has passed. You allow your mind to release its final duty of vigilance. You have worried about cold intruders, noise, and fire. You have done all you can. Now there is nothing left to do but sleep. Finally, you have succumbed. Sleep has taken you a deep and welcome slumber cradled by the warmth of your child and the profound silence that has settled in the hour before dawn. You are lost to the world, your mind blessedly quiet, your body still and heavy in the featherbed. But you are not alone. Even in your state of deepest rest, you are the host of a thriving ecosystem. Your bed, your room, your house, they are cohabited by a host of tiny, unwelcome, and largely unavoidable guests. As you sleep, a tiny bedbug, Cymex lectularius, emerges from its hiding place in a seam of your horsehair mattress. Attracted by the carbon dioxide you exhale and the warmth of your body, it makes its slow, determined journey across the vast expanse of the linen sheet. It is on a mission for a blood meal, a tiny vampire in the dark. This is a mainstream, if deeply unpleasant, reality of life in the 19th century. In an age before powerful modern insecticides, virtually every home from the poorest slum tenement to the grandest country manor had to contend with a host of insect pests. Bedbugs were a constant scourge. So were fleas, often brought in by household pets or hitching a ride on clothing. Lice were a persistent problem, and the larder was a battleground against weevils and beetles. Your nightly defense against this six-legged invasion is a multi-pronged and often futile effort. The first line of defense is cleanliness. A well-run middle-class household prided itself on its rigorous cleaning schedule. Sheets were changed and boiled rugs were taken outside and beaten mercilessly, and floors were scrubbed with harsh carbolic soap. But this was a war of attrition you were unlikely to win, so you turned to chemical warfare Victorian style. Before making the bed, you might have sprinkled a generous amount of insect powder between the mattress and the sheets. The most common and effective of these was pyrethrum powder, made from the dried heads of chrysanthemums. It was a natural insecticide that was relatively safe for humans, but deadly to fleas and lice. For bedbugs, a more aggressive approach was needed. You might have your servant periodically paint the bed frame and the floorboards around it with a solution of corrosive sublimate, a highly toxic mercury compound. It was effective, but it was also a deadly poison that had to be handled with extreme care. Now for a particularly quirky and aromatic tidbit, the herbal deterrent. Many household manuals recommended placing sachets of strongly scented herbs among the bedding and clothes. The most popular were wormwood, tansy, and pennyroyal. The bitter, pungent smells were believed to be repulsive to insects. So, your bed might be a strange aromatic cocktail of lavender from the warming pan chrysanthemum, from the insect powder, and the medicinal bitterness of wormwood tucked into the corners of the mattress tick. It's a fragrant, but ultimately losing battle. Historians still debate the psychological impact of living with this constant low-level infestation. Did people simply accept it as a fact of life, an unavoidable annoyance like bad weather, or did it contribute to a sense of the world as being inherently unclean and hostile? The Victorian obsession with cleanliness and hygiene can be seen as a direct response to this reality. The endless scrubbing, boiling, and polishing was an attempt to impose order and purity on a world that was constantly trying to crawl and bite its way into the domestic sanctuary. The bedbug reaches its destination. It finds a nice warm patch of exposed skin on your arm and begins its work. You, in your deep sleep, feel nothing. But tomorrow morning you will wake to find a small, neat row of itchy red welts, the telltale sign of your nightly visitor. It is a frustrating but familiar part of life, and it's not just insects. In the walls, a mouse scurries along a beam. It's a resident of the house living in the spaces between the floors, surviving on crumbs dropped from the dining table. You might set traps or even keep a cat for mousing, but eliminating them entirely is nearly impossible. They are a part of the house's hidden architecture, a secret scurrying family that shares your address. You shift in your sleep, rolling onto your other side. The movement disturbs the intrepid bedbug, which retreats back to the safety of the mattress seam, its meal complete. The mouse in the wall finds a dropped biscuit crumb and settles in to nibble. The house is a complex multi-species dwelling. This hidden world of pests and vermin is the unglamorous B-side to the cozy domestic ideal you strive for. For all your bolts, bells, and burglar alarms designed to keep human intruders out, the smaller, more persistent intruders have already made themselves at home. They are a constant, humbling reminder that your fortress is not as impregnable as you like to think. But for now, you are blissfully unaware. You are deep in the quietest part of the night, sharing your bed with your child and a few million tiny creatures, all of you just trying to get through to the morning. The deepest, most profound part of the night is now upon you. The house is still, the city outside has fallen into its briefest moment of quiet, and your body is in the grip of a deep, restorative sleep. It is in this state that your mind, finally untethered from the anxieties and sensations of the waking world, begins its own mysterious work. You begin to dream. Your dream is a strange, disjointed narrative. You are in a vast, ornate ballroom, but the floor is made of wet seaweed that crackles under your feet. You're trying to serve tea to Queen Victoria, but the teapot is full of black, buzzing insects. You are dressed in your finest clothes, but you are also wearing the damp, vinegary electric belt, and it is humming audibly. The dream is a collage of the day's events, the night's anxieties, and a healthy dose of pure, nonsensical imagination. As a Victorian, your relationship with your dreams is complex. In your era, long before the psychoanalytic theories of Sigmund Freud or Carl Jung would revolutionize the interpretation of dreams, you are living in a kind of theoretical limbo. The old, superstitious beliefs in dreams as divine prophecies or omens from the spirit world have largely faded among the educated classes. Yet the new scientific understanding of the dreaming brain has not yet arrived. So what do you believe your dreams mean? The mainstream educated view of your time is that dreams are primarily physiological in origin. They are not messages from another realm, but rather the brain's reaction to physical sensations during sleep. This is the somatic theory of dreaming. According to this theory, the content of your dream is directly caused by what is happening to your body. For example, if your feet have slipped out from under the covers and become cold, you might dream that you are wading through an icy river. If that sweat pudding you ate for dinner is causing indigestion, you might dream of being crushed by a great weight or pursued by a monster, the classic nightmare. Your strange dream of the seaweed floor could be easily explained by the memory of our earlier discussion on seaweed mattresses, the buzzing insects in the teapot, a mental echo of the bedbugs you subconsciously know are present. But alongside this rational physiological explanation, a whole host of more quirky and less scientific beliefs persist. This is the world of the cheap, popular dream books you can buy from a street vendor or a stationer for a penny. These little pamphlets offer an A to Z dictionary of dream symbols, a holdover from a more superstitious age repackaged for a mass audience. According to your penny dream book, your dream is full of meaning. Dreaming of a ballroom signifies a future invitation to a happy social gathering. To dream of the queen is a sign of great honor and advancement to come. But to dream of insects is a warning of secret enemies and vexing small troubles ahead. Tea is a sign of domestic harmony, but a broken or empty teapot is a bad omen. Your dream, when read through this lens, is a confusing mix of good fortune and imminent trouble. It's a fun parlor game, a kind of fortune-telling, but you don't take it too seriously. It's a bit of harmless fun, not a genuine guide to life. Historians still debate the true nature of the Victorian inner life. Was their world as emotionally repressed and buttoned up as the popular stereotype suggests? Or did dreams offer a private, socially acceptable outlet for the anxieties, desires, and fears that could not be expressed in waking life? The very few surviving dream diaries from the period suggest that, like us, Victorians dreamed vividly about their daily struggles, their social ambitions, their families, and their fears. A woman might dream of flying, a powerful symbol of freedom in a restrictive society. A clerk might dream of inheriting a fortune and escape from the daily grind of his work. Dreams were a private theater where the strict rules of Victorian society could be bent, broken, or temporarily ignored. Your dream shifts. You are now floating weightlessly through the dark streets of London. The gaslights below look like strings of scattered pearls. You feel a sense of profound freedom and peace. There are no anxieties up here, no worries about sweat pudding or burglars. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. You will not remember this specific dream with any clarity when you wake up. It will fade within moments of consciousness, leaving behind only a faint emotional residue, a feeling of having been on a strange and significant journey. You will not analyze it for its hidden meanings or its psychological roots. To you, it is simply part of the mysterious nightly process of rest. It is the unharnessing of the mind, as one Victorian writer put it, a necessary period of fanciful chaos before the rational order of the day is re-established. The dream of flying continues a silent, peaceful soar through the night sky. Your mind is at play untroubled and free. It is the deepest and most restorative phase of your long, eventful night. The work of sleep is finally being done not by a gadget or a potion, but by the ancient and mysterious power of your own dreaming brain. Your peaceful flying dream begins to dissolve. The silent soaring sensation gives way to a new awareness, a gentle intrusion from the world outside your own mind. It's a sound. But it's not the jarring clang of a church bell or the rumble of a cart. It's a gentle, rhythmic, and insistent tap-tap-tapping sound. It seems to be coming from your bedroom window. Tap, tap, tap. In your drowsy state, you at first incorporate it into your dream. You are flying past a clock tower, and a giant woodpecker is pecking at the face. But the sound is too persistent, too real. It pulls you slowly, reluctantly up from the depths of sleep. Your eyes flutter open. The darkness in the room is no longer absolute. A pale grayish light is filtering through the heavy drapes. Dawn is approaching. Tap, tap, tappity, tap, tap. The sound is louder now that you're awake. It's coming directly from the window pane. It's a sharp, distinct rap. For a moment, a flicker of the old fear returns. An intruder. But this makes no sense. A burglar would be silent. This sound is designed to be heard. Then you remember. Of course, it's the knocker-upper. You are being woken up by a human alarm clock. In an era before reliable and affordable alarm clocks were common in every home, this was a dedicated and essential profession. For a few pence a week, the knocker-upper would ensure that you and the thousands of other workers in your district would wake up in time for your early shifts at the factory, the docks, or the workshop. You lie still and listen. The knocker-upper's tool of choice is a long, lightweight pole, often made of bamboo, which allows them to reach the windows of second or even third-story bedrooms. On the end of the pole, they might have a simple knob of wood or a bundle of wires, perfect for making a sharp, unmissable tapping sound on the glass. This is the mainstream and most charming method of waking up the industrial working class of Britain. It was a profession that lasted well into the 20th century, only fading away with the proliferation of electricity and cheap, reliable alarm clocks after the Second World War. The knocker-upper was a familiar and trusted figure in the community, a living link in the great chain of industrial timekeeping. The tapping on your window stops. You hear the faint scrape of the pole being lowered, and then the sound of the knocker-upper moving onto your neighbor's window. A moment later, the tap-tap-tapping begins again a little further down the street. The knocker-upper will not leave a client's window until they get some sign that the person inside is awake, a light appearing, a hand waving, or a shout of acknowledgement. It was a job that required persistence and a powerful sense of responsibility. Now for the quirky tidbit. While the long pole was the most common tool, some knocker-uppers had their own unique methods. In some towns they used a pea shooter, not the childish toy but a proper, powerful tube used to shoot dried peas at their clients' windows. The rattle of a volley of peas against the glass was apparently a very effective way to rouse someone from a deep sleep. It was also presumably a great way to annoy anyone who wasn't their client but lived on the same street. Historians still debate the social structure of this unique profession. Knocker-uppers were often older men or women, people who were perhaps no longer fit for heavy factory work, but were reliable and knew the neighborhood inside and out. It was a job built on trust and routine. Imagine the responsibility, the livelihoods of hundreds of people depended on you showing up on time in all weather day after day. A lazy or forgetful knocker-upper could cause chaos, with whole streets of workers arriving late and facing the wrath of a foreman or the loss of a day's pay. You're not a factory worker. You are a member of the comfortable middle class. So why do you employ a knocker-upper? Perhaps you have an early train to catch. Or perhaps you are simply a person who values punctuality and distrusts your own ability to wake up on time. The gentle ticking of your carriage clock is a soothing sound, but it has no alarm function. Your failed magnetic alarm bed is silent. The knocker-upper is your guarantee that the day will begin when it is supposed to. You are awake now. The day has officially been summoned. You could, if you wanted to roll over and try to snatch a few more moments of sleep. But the sound of the knocker-upper making their way down the street, a wave of enforced consciousness spreading through the neighborhood, is a powerful motivator. The world is starting to stir. The machine of the city is cranking back into life. You sit up in bed. The child beside you is still fast asleep, undisturbed by the tapping. You look at the slivers of gray light around the edges of the curtains. The night is over. The long, strange, and eventful journey through the world of Victorian sleep, with its gadgets, its potions, its anxieties, and its small comforts, has come to an end. It is time to face the day. The knocker-upper's final distant taps have faded, leaving behind a new kind of silence. It's not the deep, heavy silence of the dead of night, but the thin, expectant hush of dawn. The day is waiting. You are awake, your mind clear, but your body is reluctant. It is nestled in a pocket of profound warmth that has been painstakingly accumulated over the course of the long night. Leaving it feels like a form of self-betrayal. This is the next great challenge of the Victorian morning, waking up in the cold dark. The pale light filtering through the curtains is weak and gray. It holds no warmth. The sun has not yet risen, and the air in your bedroom, which you fought so hard to keep at bay all night, is waiting to pounce. It is just as frigid and unwelcoming as it was when you first came upstairs. You sit up fully, the movement sending a puff of warm air from under the covers into the cold room, where it instantly condenses. You can see your breath, a small white cloud in the gloom. The chill hits your shoulders and back even through the thick flannel of your nightgown. Your skin prickles with goosebumps. The temptation to lie back down, to pull the fortress of blankets over your head and retreat for another hour is immense. This moment, this physical and mental battle to leave the sanctuary of the bed, is a universal Victorian experience. Without central heating, the temperature difference between your bed and the room could be extreme, as much as 20 or 30 degrees Fahrenheit or more. Getting out of bed wasn't just a matter of waking up. It was an act of genuine physical courage. You look at the child sleeping soundly beside you, a small warm lump under the blankets, completely oblivious. You envy their blissful ignorance. But you are an adult, and the duties of the day are calling. You steel yourself. The first step is to get your feet into something warm. You reach over the side of the bed, fumbling in the dark for your slippers. They are not the flimsy decorative mules of today. They are substantial, felt-lined leather slippers designed for insulation as much as comfort. You slide your feet into them. The leather is cold, but you know it will warm up quickly. This is a mainstream practical step that everyone took. Going barefoot on the icy floorboards or cold stone floors was unthinkable, a surefire way to catch a chill that could, according to the medical wisdom of the day, lead to any number of serious illnesses. Now for a quirky little accessory designed to make this moment more bearable: the cat. Not the animal, but a small iron trivet with legs. The idea was that the last thing you did before getting into bed at night was to place your folded day clothes on top of this cat and position it on the hearth near the dying embers of the fire. The trivet would keep the clothes from scorching, but the gentle residual heat would warm them through. When you woke up, you would have a pile of toasty warm clothes to put on, a small but profound luxury that would take the edge off the morning chill. You didn't do this last night, and you regret it now as you eye your cold, limp clothes on the chair. Historians still debate the impact of these daily, physically stressful transitions on the Victorian psyche. Did the constant battle against the cold contribute to the famous stiff upper lip of the British character? Did this daily dose of deliberate, bracing discomfort build resilience and fortitude, or did it simply make people miserable? Perhaps the truth is that it was so normal, so much a part of the fabric of life, that it was simply accepted without much thought. It was the way things were. Complaining about the cold in the morning would be like complaining that the sky was blue. You take a deep breath, hold it, and then in one swift, decisive movement, you swing your legs out of the bed and stand up. The cold hits you like a physical blow. It's a sharp, clean, and deeply unpleasant sensation. The air feels like it's actively leaching the warmth from your body. Your one goal now is to get a fire going, and to do it as quickly as possible. You don't bother with your dressing gown for now. Speed is of the essence. You move across the room, your slippers making a soft shuffling sound on the wooden floor. You are a refugee fleeing the lost paradise of your warm bed on a desperate quest for the life-giving promise of a flame. The day has begun, not with a gentle yawn and a stretch, but with a shiver and a gasp. The cozy, sleepy world of the night is gone, shattered by the cold, hard reality of the morning. The battle for comfort must begin all anew. Now that you've made the heroic leap from your warm bed into the chilling air of the bedroom, a single urgent task dominates your mind fire. The small black cast iron grate of the fireplace is a dark cold mouth in the wall. It offers no comfort. It is your job to bring it to life. This is the first and most crucial ritual of the Victorian morning, a foundational act upon which the entire comfort of the coming day will be built. You approach the hearth. Kneeling on the cold, hard stone, you peer into the grate. It's filled with the gray, lifeless ash and a few charred lumps from yesterday's fire. The first step is to clear this out. You take a small, stiff brush and a flat shovel from the set of fire irons, the poker tongs, brush, and shovel that stand in a neat brass holder beside the fireplace. You sweep the old ash through the grate into the pan below the fine dust, creating a small gray cloud that makes you turn your head to avoid inhaling it. The metallic scraping sound is harsh in the quiet room. With the grate cleared, you can now build the new fire. This is a precise, almost architectural process. First, you need tinder. You reach into a small, lidded wooden box on the hearth, the tinder box. Inside, you might have a collection of very dry, flammable materials, scraps of old cotton rag, dried moss, or if you're well prepared, a few fire lighters. These are small blocks of sawdust and paraffin wax, a modern convenience that makes the job much easier. You place a fire lighter or a small loose ball of tinder at the very bottom of the grate. Next comes the kindling. From a larger brass or copper bucket, you take a handful of small dry sticks and twigs. You arrange these carefully over the tinder, building a small loose structure that looks like a miniature log cabin or a teepee. The goal is to create a lattice with plenty of air gaps, allowing oxygen to circulate and feed the initial delicate flame. This is a skill honed by long practice. Too tight and you'll smother the fire. Too loose and the heat won't catch. Finally, you add the fuel. You place a few small lumps of coal on top of and around your kindling structure. Not too many and not too large. You need the initial flame from the kindling to be hot enough to ignite the coal, which burns at a much higher temperature. The whole construction is a carefully layered pyramid of potential energy, waiting for a catalyst. This entire process is a mainstream daily chore for millions of people. In a large, wealthy household, this job would be done by a junior servant, the tweenie, or the under housemaid, who would rise before everyone else to go from room to room, silently and expertly lighting the fires so the family could wake up to a warm house. But in a more modest, middle-class home like yours, it's often a task for the first person up. Now for a quirky and slightly lazy alternative. For those who couldn't be bothered with the full ritual every morning, there was the lazy wife's fire, or the overnight fire. The idea was to bank the fire heavily the night before, covering the hot coals with a thick layer of slack or coal dust. This would starve the fire of oxygen, causing it to smolder at a very low temperature, all night, without going out completely. In the morning, you would simply use the poker to break up the crust of slack, allowing air to get to the still glowing embers, beneath which would then roar back to life. It was a convenient shortcut, but it was also considered somewhat wasteful and could create a lot of soot and smoke. Historians still debate the environmental impact of this coal-based economy. The sheer amount of coal being burned in domestic fireplaces created the infamous thick yellow pea soup fogs that plagued Victorian cities. This smog, a mixture of smoke and fog, was not just unpleasant, it was deadly, contributing to thousands of respiratory illnesses. As you kneel to light your fire, you are participating in a collective act that provides immediate personal comfort at the cost of a long-term public health crisis. You are in a very real sense poisoning the air you breathe in order to warm it. With the fire laid, the final magical moment arrives. You take a lucifer match from the box, strike it on the rough side of the match striker, and carefully insert the sputtering flame into the base of your kindling structure. The tinder catches instantly, a small, bright orange flower of flame blooming in the darkness of the grate. For a few tense moments you watch, holding your breath. The flame licks at the kindling, which begins to crackle and pop. A wisp of white smoke curls up the chimney. The flame grows stronger and more confident, engulfing the small sticks. You sit back on your heels, watching your handiwork. A wave of gentle, radiant heat begins to push back against the room's oppressive cold. The cheerful, crackling sound of the young fire is the most comforting sound in the world. The room is still cold, but it is no longer a hopeless, static cold. It is a cold in retreat. You have done it. You have performed the ancient ritual. You have brought light and warmth into the world, and the day can now truly begin. The small fire in the grate is now your anchor, a source of growing warmth and cheerful crackling sound. The profound chill of the room is beginning to recede, replaced by a more manageable coolness. You stand up, your knees stiff from kneeling on the hard hearthstone, and turn your attention to the final ritual of the night, which is paradoxically the first ritual of the morning: getting dressed. This is not a simple matter of pulling on a t-shirt and jeans. It is a complex, multi-layered process of assembling your daily armor. You walk over to the chair where you left your clothes last night. They are cool to the touch and slightly stiff in the cold air. The thought of putting them against your skin is not an appealing one. You hold them up in front of the new fire for a moment, letting a little of the chill burn off. The process of dressing begins with the undergarments. This is an elaborate affair in itself. First comes the chemise, a simple sleeveless linen or cotton shift similar in shape to your nightgown but much lighter. Its purpose is to act as a washable barrier between your body and your more expensive, harder-to-clean outer garments. Next comes the main event, the centerpiece of the Victorian female silhouette, the corset. You pick it up. It's a formidable piece of engineering made of stiff cotton, coutil, reinforced with channels of boning, no longer made of actual whalebone but more likely flexible steel strips. It has a row of metal clasps down the front and a long lace at the back for tightening. You wrap it around your torso, hook the front clasps together, and then begin the arduous process of lacing. You pull the long laces, tightening the corset until it provides the desired firm, wasp-waisted figure. It's restrictive, yes, but it also provides a sense of structure and support. To you, it feels normal, the proper foundation for a respectable appearance. This is the mainstream iconic garment of the era. The corset shaped not just the body, but also the perception of female beauty and propriety. It dictated posture, restricted movement, and created the idealized hourglass figure that was the height of fashion for most of the century. After the corset, you add layers for warmth and modesty. You put on a set of drawers, long, loose-fitting cotton or flannel trousers, often open at the crotch, for practicality when using a privy or chamber pot. Then comes the corset cover, a simple bodice to conceal the lines of the corset, and then the petticoats, not one but several. You might start with a flannel petticoat for warmth, followed by a crinoline, or bustle, a cage-like structure designed to hold the skirts out in the fashionable shape, and then one or two more layers of starched cotton petticoats over that to create a smooth line. You are building a substantial structure around your lower body. Now for a quirky tidbit about a man's attire. While women's undergarments were complex, men also had their own specific items. A Victorian gentleman might wear a cholera belt, a wide band of flannel or wool wrapped tightly around the abdomen. It was believed that keeping the core of the body warm was essential for warding off diseases like cholera and other digestive ailments. It was a kind of masculine medicinal corset, worn not for shape, but for health. Historians still debate the medical and social consequences of the corset. Health reformers of the day railed against it, blaming it for everything from fainting spells to internal organ damage. They produced lurid diagrams showing how the corset displaced the ribs, liver, and stomach. On the other hand, many women defended it, arguing that it provided necessary back support and was essential for a dignified and fashionable appearance. For many, going without a corset would have felt like going out in public without shoes, unthinkable, improper, and deeply uncomfortable in its own way. It was both a symbol of female oppression and a tool of respectable self-presentation. Finally, with the underpinnings complete, you can put on your actual dress. It's a handsome garment of dark wool with a high neck, long sleeves, and a full skirt designed to fit perfectly over your petticoat structure. You fasten the long row of tiny buttons up the front. The final piece of your transformation from a creature of the night to a lady of the day is complete. You look at yourself in the long mirror on the wardrobe door. The person looking back is structured upright and impeccably turned out. The soft, shapeless form that slept in the flannel nightgown has been replaced by a figure of carefully constructed propriety. The process was laborious, but the result is a sense of being ready, of being properly armed to face the social demands of the day. You are no longer just a person. You are a respectable Victorian lady, and you are ready for your breakfast. Dressed and ready, you stand for a moment before the mirror, a fully assembled Victorian, a stark contrast to the soft, shapeless creature who emerged from the bed just a short while ago. The fire in the grate now burns with a steady, confident warmth, and the room is filled with a pale, pearly morning light. The long night is well and truly over. You turn and walk to the window. You pull back the heavy wool curtain, the brass rings scraping along the rail one last time. The morning view is revealed. The sky is a soft gray tinged with pink and orange at the horizon. The street below is coming to life. A milkman with his cart and clinking bottles is making his rounds. A boy is sweeping the steps of the house opposite. The world is waking up, shaking off the slumber you fought so hard to find. You look back at the bed. It looks like a scene of a gentle disaster. The heavy blankets are thrown back, the pillows are dented, and the sheets are rumpled. The small body of your child is still curled in a warm heap in the very center. On the bedside table, the collection of bottles and gadgets sits as a silent testament to the night's struggles The laudanum bottle, the tin of poppy pills, the useless electric belt lying on the floor, the carriage clock ticking faithfully. It was a journey, a battle fought with strange weapons and shifting strategies. You think of the many stages of the night, the initial cold and the simple, brilliant fortress of the four-poster bed. The meticulous ritual of the warming pan, a dance with fire for the reward of a cozy bed. The fear of the night air, the stuffy self-imposed confinement driven by the belief in poisonous miasma. The nightly ablutions in bracingly cold water. The strange, bulky armor of the flannel nightgown and cap. The ever-present humble convenience of the chamber pot. The little luxuries of reading by candlelight and the strange potent relief offered by patent medicines and laudanum. You remember the failed experiments with the bizarre electrical cures, the maddening scratch of the magnetic bed. You recall the mental anxieties about digestion and overstimulation, the Victorian burden of a self-inflicted insomnia. You think of the solid, reliable firmness of the horsehair mattress, the battle against the city's noise, and the sudden heart-stopping fear of the imagined intruder, which turned out to be nothing more than your own child, seeking comfort. It was a night filled with small forgotten technologies, with beliefs that now seem alien, and with anxieties that are both strange and surprisingly familiar. The quest for a good night's sleep, you reflect, is a timeless human struggle. Your methods may be different, your tools more primitive, but the goal is the same. To find a few hours of quiet warmth and peace in a world that is often cold, noisy, and unsettling. You have survived the Victorian night. You have navigated its peculiar challenges and emerged into the light of a new day. The struggles of the darkness seem distant, now almost quaint in the face of the morning's clarity. The warmth from the fire is growing, and soon the smell of coffee and frying bacon will drift up from the kitchen below. The day, with its own set of rules, rituals, and challenges, is beginning. You leave the room, closing the door softly behind you so as not to wake the sleeping child. The long, strange, and surprisingly cozy night is finally over. And now, as your own journey through this bygone evening comes to its close, perhaps you can feel the heavy comfort of those woolen blankets around you. The memory of the flickering candlelight may soften the edges of your own room, and the gentle rhythmic ticking of the carriage clock might just echo in the quiet spaces of your mind. There is nothing left to worry about now. No fires to tend, no drafts to block, no strange potions to consider. The night has been navigated, the challenges have been met, and the fortress of your own bed is safe and secure. All that is left to do is to let the gentle weight of sleep settle over you, to let the story fade as your own quiet, peaceful rest begins. Just allow your breathing to be slow and deep, feeling the easy rhythm of your own body settling into a profound and well-earned slumber. The morning is a long way off, and there is nothing required of you now but to drift and to dream.